Chapter 2040. You might not know, but Feng Yuan used to be a follower of the first elder's son. But he was very calculative. He used the first elder's son to climb up step by step. In the end, he set his sights on the throne of the resource hall master. But since the other party was the first elder's son, he didn't dare to act rashly. So, he waited patiently and slowly looked for an opportunity. Then, one day, the first elder's son received news that a Class 9 soul line had been born in the Sky Dragon Sea. There are only 3 Class 9 soul lines in Nine Heaven Palace, so the first elder's son took some people and went to the Sky Dragon Sea. Among them was Feng Yuan. Guyong said. Qin Feiyang asked, is there really a Class 9 soul line? There is. However, the birth of this Class 9 soul line also attracted the attention of the Treasure Hall and other factions. At that time, the various factions had a bloody battle. The Treasure Hall sent the current Vice Hall Master. He was very strong and directly injured the First Elder's son. But because of the First Elder's face, he didn't kill him. But Feng Yuan took the opportunity to kill the First Elder's son while he was recuperating. His companions were all killed by him to keep their mouths shut. At that time, this matter even caused a huge commotion in the northern region. Guyong said. That's for sure. After all, the other party was the First Elder's son. Then what did Feng Yuan say to the First Elder when he returned? Qin Feiyang asked. He told the First Elder that he was attacked by sea beasts on the way back. He blamed the Treasure Hall's Vice Hall Master, saying that if the Vice Hall Master hadn't injured his son, he wouldn't have died in the Sky Dragon Sea. Because of this matter, the First Elder personally went to the Treasure Hall. If the Treasure Hall Master hadn't stopped him, the Vice Hall Master would have died at the First Elder's hands. Guyong said. Fire Lotus smiled bitterly. He's probably the only one who dares to go to the Treasure Hall. Qin Feiyang said, this shows how terrifying this old man's strength is. The First Elder's strength cannot be described with the word terrifying. According to Feng Yuan, if the First Elder were to go all out, there would not be more than 5 people in the entire northern region who could fight against him. Guyong said. Terrifying, truly terrifying. Then, did Feng Yuan naturally become the hall master of the resource hall? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Because Feng Yuan has been following the First Elder's son, he is more familiar with the situation in the resource hall than anyone else. Furthermore, he wasn't weak at that time, so the Great Elder and the Vice Palace Master discussed and let him take up the post. Guyong said. Qin Feiyang asked, how many years ago did this happen? Guyong thought for a moment and said, it should be more than 10,000 years ago. Anyway, it's been a long time. Then how do you know so clearly? At that time, you hadn't followed Feng Yuan yet, right? Qin Feiyang said. Indeed, I didn't. But this was told to me by Feng Yuan himself. It's definitely true. Guyong said solemnly. Fire Lotus said in surprise, Feng Yuan even told you such an important thing? He said it once when he drank too much. Of course. It's also because of his trust in me. You can say that in terms of trust, even his own son, Feng Wenhai, can't compare to me. Guyong said proudly. Not bad. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. It was not difficult to gain a person's trust. However, it wasn't easy for someone to trust him so much. It meant that Guyong was indeed very smart. Fire Lotus shook her head and said, to be honest, I feel a little sorry for Feng Yuan now. Why? Qin Feiyang and Guyong looked at her suspiciously. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang and said, think about it, Feng Yuan trusted him so much, but he betrayed Feng Yuan. Don't you think such a person is hateful? Heard about it. Guyong looked rather embarrassed. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but want to laugh. He looked at Guyong and said, don't mind her. This girl is just telling the truth. I won't. Guyong waved his hand. But then, his expression froze. He originally thought that Qin Feiyang was comforting him. But after thinking about it carefully, it didn't seem to be the case. He was just telling the truth. Was this considered comforting him? Was there a need to go overboard? Besides, if it weren't for you, would I have betrayed Feng Yuan? But he didn't dare to say these words. Qin Feiyang coughed and asked, besides you, who else knows about this? Feng Wenhai and Yin Hui know. But the descendants, such as Feng Zihan and Feng Zijuan, know nothing. Guyong said. Qin Feiyang said, is the deputy pavilion master of the treasure pavilion still around? Yes. Guyong nodded and said, I heard that he's in seclusion. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said with a smile, it seems that keeping you alive is the right choice. All right, you go back first. I'll look for you if I need anything in the future. Don't look for me, okay? I'll tell you another secret. Guyong said with a bitter face. Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked curiously, what secret? Feng Yuan has an account book in his hands. All the things he has embezzled over the years are recorded in this account book. As long as you can get this account book, it's equivalent to holding his life in your hands. Guyong said. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up and he asked, where is this account book? Guyong said, it's in his interspatial ring. He carries it with him everywhere and never leaves his side. Never leaves his side? Qin Feiyang frowned. This was a little difficult. Guyong said, look, I've already told you such an important thing. Can't you let me go? Don't worry. If there's nothing particularly important, I won't disturb you. Qin Feiyang smiled comfortingly. Guyong sighed helplessly. Anyway, you don't intend to let me go. As long as you behave yourself, I guarantee that you'll live a good life. All right, you can go back. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Guyong out. Fire Lotus said suspiciously, Qin Dage, taking bribes and bending the law is a serious crime. Why does Feng Yuan keep an account book? Because he has to reconcile the accounts. Although he's in charge of the resource hall, the first elder will definitely check the accounts at any time. If he doesn't record it in the account book, then he won't know how to reconcile the accounts. After all, if he's too greedy, sometimes even he will forget where the money he took went. Qin Feiyang said. In other words, the account book he showed the first elder is the public account, while the one in his hand is the hidden account. Fire Lotus said. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled, it seems like I have to go to the resource hall. Only by entering the resource hall would he be able to get close to Feng Yuan. Only by getting close to him would he have a chance to obtain the account book. You know that there's a tiger in the mountain, but you still want to go there. Fire Lotus rolled her eyes at Huang Xiaolong. Isn't there another saying? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Qin Feiyang smiled and left the Black Tortoise world with Fire Lotus. After returning to the Nine Heavens Palace, he went to the ancient castle with Fire Lotus to cultivate in seclusion. Chapter 2041. After a period of time, it finally calmed down. No one came to find trouble with Qin Feiyang anymore. But outside, the matter of Feng Wenhai framing Qin Feiyang did not die down. Everyone would often discuss this matter after dinner. The Feng family's reputation was ruined and everyone despised them. Qin Feiyang became the idol of many young people. Not only did he have courage, but he also had brains. This was especially true for many young girls. When the name Qin Feiyang was mentioned, their eyes couldn't help but shine. Time passed quickly. More than a month passed. Boom! Inside the ancient castle, a terrifying aura appeared. This aura had already reached the level of a perfect war god. The owner of this aura was Qin Feiyang. Swish! He opened his eyes and 2 rays of divine light shot out. It was indeed different with the soul stone. Of course. With the soul stone and without the ancient castle, it would not be so fast. You broke through. Fire Lotus stood at the side and smiled at Qin Feiyang. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and restrained his aura. He looked up and sized up Fire Lotus. The aura emitted by the Fire Lotus was also a level stronger than before. Obviously. She had also reached the level of perfect war god. Fire Lotus shook her head and said, I really don't like to cultivate. It's too boring sitting here all day. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He stood up and knocked Fire Lotus's head hard. Do you know how many people want to cultivate in the ancient castle? You're good, you're bored. You really don't know how lucky you are. Fire Lotus rubbed her head and laughed. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and took out the image crystal. Buzz. Not long later. A figure appeared. It was Gao Xiaolong. Gao Xiaolong's aura had also reached the level of a perfect war god. Qin Feiyang said in surprise, You've already broken through? Yes. This is all thanks to the soul stone Brother Jiang gave me. I could have broken through to perfect war god long ago, but I didn't have the soul stone and could only rely on myself. Gao Xiaolong sighed helplessly. Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, How's the situation outside recently? Nothing much. Feng Yuan, Feng Zihan, and Feng Zijuan are all very honest. It's just that Gongzi Feng has some problems. Gao Xiaolong frowned. What is it? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Gao Xiaolong went on, last time at the square, he pleaded for Feng Wenhai, do you still remember? Qin Feiyang nodded. Because of this, Feng Yuan's attitude towards him finally changed. But good times don't last. Back then, Feng Yuan asked young Master Feng if there was anything he wanted. What he meant was that he was prepared to nurture him. But can you guess how Gongzi Feng answered? He told Feng Yuan that he didn't need anything. He just wanted to give his mother a status. This sentence angered Feng Yuan again, and he chased him out of the house on the spot. Since then, he has been staying in the restaurant all day. I tried to persuade him, but it was useless. It was as if he had no soul. Gao Xiaolong shook his head, sympathy written all over his face. Qin Feiyang was silent for a long time when he heard this. I thought he was a smart person, but it seems like I overestimated him. Gao Xiaolong asked, You also think that he's wrong? Of course he's wrong. Feng Wenhai's matter has already ruined the Feng family's reputation. If he reveals his mother's identity at this time, won't the Feng family be even more embarrassed? Anyone with half a brain wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Qin Feiyang said. I think so too, and I told him the same thing. But now, other than hatred, he won't listen to anything. Gao Xiaolong said. Forget it. There's no need to help such a stupid person. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. If Gongzi Feng could endure for a bit and wait for this matter to pass, wait for Feng Yuan to calm down, and then mention to Feng Yuan about clearing his mother's name, then it would definitely be a different situation. Gao Xiaolong sighed, actually, he's quite pitiful. There are too many pitiful people in this world, one more won't make a difference. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. That's true. Gao Xiaolong nodded with a smile. In fact, he knew that Qin Feiyang was exasperated at Gongzi Feng's failure to live up to his expectations. Qin Feiyang asked, How's your sister recently? Not bad. I gave her half of the 10 million soul stones you gave me, and she's in seclusion now. Gao Xiaolong smiled. Qin Feiyang praised, Good, she doesn't forget her family, very good. Now, she only has me as her brother, if I don't take care of her, who will? Gao Xiaolong sighed. Qin Feiyang said, I admire you for this. Gao Xiaolong scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. Suddenly, Gao Xiaolong seemed to have thought of something, and his brows furrowed slightly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Recently, something big happened in the treasure pavilion. Qin Feiyang asked, What's the matter? Gao Xiaolong said, I remember that half a month ago, the treasure pavilion auctioned off a pill called 9 Revolutions Dragon Blood Pill. 9 Revolutions Dragon Blood Pill. Qin Feiyang's eyes narrowed. This Mu Tianyang really acted fast. Last time, it was Mu Qing who acted on her own, but this time, it was definitely Mu Tianyang who acted personally. Moreover, it was 100% done with soul stones. Because Mu Tianyang was different from Mu Qing, he wouldn't waste such a good opportunity to earn soul stones. Alright. If there's any situation in the future, remember to inform me at once. Qin Feiyang looked at Gao Xiaolong and smiled. Okay. Gao Xiaolong nodded. Qin Feiyang turned off the image crystal and fell into deep thought. Fire Lotus said, Qin Dage, we can't let Mu Tianyang and the Treasure Pavilion continue to cooperate like this. But the Treasure Pavilion has banned me, I can't stop them. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. We can go look for Shengguan Fenglan. She's Shengguan Qiu's sister, Shengguan Qiu will definitely listen to her. Fire Lotus laughed. Forget it, I don't want to face this woman at all. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, smiling, let's go, I haven't been to the Treasure Pavilion since I was banned. You also don't want to cultivate, right? Let's go take a look at the Treasure Pavilion today. Go now? Aren't you looking for trouble? I don't want to go. Fire Lotus shook her head. Girl, do you really think I don't have a way to deal with that Shengguan Qiu? Qin Feiyang chuckled. What way? Fire Lotus was stunned as she looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. You'll know in a while. Qin Feiyang smiled, took Fire Lotus and left the Black Tortoise realm, then walked out of the cave and flew towards the sky stairway. Jiang Haotian, Jiang Fire Lotus, wait up. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus stopped and turned to look, only to see Qingli flying towards them. Both of them were stunned. Why was Qingli looking for them? Qingli flew over and asked suspiciously, where are you guys going? I have something to do in Sky Dragon City. May I ask what's the matter, Elder? Qin Feiyang asked. It's like this. The higher-ups have decided to let the two of you, Jiang Rushuang and Hui Yi, enter the inner sect. I'm here to inform you. Qingli laughed. Enter the inner sect? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Actually, you guys were originally inner sect disciples, but because you were framed by Feng Wenhai, you were demoted to the outer sect. Now that the truth is out, it's only right for you to return to the inner sect. Qingli said. What about the reward for first place? Since we were wronged, the reward for first place should be returned to us. Fire Lotus said. I'm afraid, Qingli was in a difficult position. Elder Cheng. To be honest, we're already used to the life of the outer sect and don't want to go to the inner sect yet. Why don't you go back and let us stay in the outer sect? Qin Feiyang said. Don't want to go to the inner sect? The corner of Qing Li's mouth twitched. If you want the reward for first place back, just say it, why find such an excuse? The reward for first place has already been given to Mu Tianyang, it's impossible to return it to you. If you insist on not going, I won't force you, but don't regret it. 3 days later, the resource hall will be recruiting. At that time, only inner sect disciples are qualified to sign up. Qingli said. Resource hall is recruiting? Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. Yes. The treatment in the resource hall is even better than the inner sect, even I want to join. Qingli smiled. Are you sure only inner sect disciples can sign up? Elder, don't try to trick us. Qin Feiyang said. Jiang Haotian, you're being rude. In any case, I am an elder. Why would I lie to disciples like you? Qingli said angrily. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Disciple was just saying it casually. Qin Feiyang quickly apologized. Actually. Qingli sighed and smiled, you're now a famous person in Nine Heaven Palace. To be honest, I don't want you to go to the inner sect, but this is an order from the higher-ups, no one can go against it. Prepare to go to the inner sect. Okay. After we return from Sky Dragon City, we'll go to the inner sect. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay then. When the time comes, help me tell Jiang Rushuang and Huai, so I don't have to make this trip again. Qingli said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and said. After Qingli left, Fire Lotus said suspiciously, why do I feel that this person is trying to curry favor? Feng Wenhai has already fallen, so he has no one to rely on. Naturally, he wants to curry favor. These are all small fries, there's no need to take them seriously. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled, turned around, and tore through the sky like a bolt of lightning. Sky Dragon City. Treasure Pavilion. It's Jiang Haotian. And his sister, Jiang Fire Lotus. This Jiang Haotian, how could he be a perfect war god? I remember that during the exam, he was only a beginner war god. How could he be so fast? The moment Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus appeared, they caused a commotion. A group of people surrounded them as if they were long-lost relatives. Even Qin Feiyang couldn't withstand their enthusiasm. He quickly pulled Fire Lotus and walked towards the entrance of the treasure pavilion. In front of the treasure pavilion, 2 guards stood straight. Seeing Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus walk over, they looked at each other and stepped in front of the entrance. What's the meaning of this? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Young Master Jiang, we're just following orders, please don't make things difficult for us. The 2 cupped their hands and said with an apologetic expression. Chapter 2042. Qin Feiyang frowned. Did I make things difficult for you? You're the ones making things difficult for me. The 2 of them looked at each other, not knowing how to respond. What do you mean? The treasure pavilion is open for business. Why are you stopping Jiang Haotian and his sister? What do you mean by following orders? Whose orders are these? The surrounding crowd began to question them. Qin Feiyang had not been to the treasure pavilion since he was banned, so no one knew about it yet. Yes. Why are you stopping us? Did I offend you? Qin Feiyang pretended to be confused. No. The 2 guards quickly waved their hands, feeling bitter. If it were in the past, they would have been fearless. However, the situation was different now. Qin Feiyang had won the hearts of the people in Sky Dragon City. If the fact that they banned Qin Feiyang was exposed, the treasure pavilion might drown in everyone's spittle. No? Then I'm puzzled. If I didn't offend you, why can't I enter the treasure pavilion? Don't tell me the treasure pavilion banned me. Qin Feiyang said. What? Banned? Why did they ban you? The crowd looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. I don't know either. I don't think I've done anything wrong to the treasure pavilion. But if they didn't ban me, why can't they let me in? Qin Feiyang said innocently. Shengguan Xiu, come out. You have to make this clear today. How dare they ban Jiang Haotian? Who gave you the right to do that? Come out. If you don't make it clear today, we won't come to the treasure pavilion in the future. The crowd roared with righteous indignation. Could it be that some people in the treasure pavilion were bribed by Feng Wenhai? Fire Lotus said suddenly. What? Bribed by Feng Wenhai? Preposterous. The dignified treasure pavilion is actually colluding with such shameless people. Shengguan Xiu, stop hiding. Come out and give us an explanation. Otherwise, we will chase your treasure pavilion out of Heavenly Dragon City. The crowd roared furiously. It's over. This is going to be big. The 2 guards were burning with anxiety. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. The treasure pavilion was able to stand tall in the northern region because of its reputation and the support of the common people. If they offended everyone, then the treasure pavilion would no longer be able to maintain a foothold in the northern region. Suddenly, surrounded by a group of staff members, Shang Guanxiu walked out of the treasure pavilion and stood at the entrance with a gloomy face. Shang Guanxiu, speak clearly. Why did you ban Zhang Haotian? Was he bribed by Feng Wenhai? The crowd roared. I'd like to see how you're going to handle this. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Shang Guanxiu glanced at the crowd and raised his hand. Everyone, please be quiet. The crowd fell silent and waited for him to continue. The treasure pavilion did not ban Zhang Haotian. It's just that we were entertaining an important guest and did not want to be disturbed, so we temporarily blocked Zhang Haotian outside. Shang Guanxiu smiled. That's strange. What does your entertaining of an important guest have to do with me entering the treasure pavilion? I'm not here to look for you. Qin Feiyang frowned. That's right. He's not here to look for you, and he won't interfere with your entertaining of an important guest. Why did you block him outside? Even if you want to find an excuse, shouldn't you at least find a better one? The crowd said angrily. Shang Guanxiu was furious. He glared at Qin Feiyang and smiled at the crowd. I didn't think it through. I hope everyone can forgive me. No. With Steward Shangguan's intelligence and ability, how could he not think it through? There must be another reason. Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus also said, if you can't even think about this, then what ability do you have to be the steward of the treasure pavilion? Shang Guanxiu was going crazy. He said telepathically, don't push your luck. Push my luck? Qin Feiyang smiled inwardly and turned his head to look at the crowd behind him. He said angrily, everyone, just now, this manager actually sent me a voice transmission to warn me not to push my luck. I really don't know what I've done to the treasure pavilion. How is this pushing my luck? Shang Guanxiu was furious. He looked at Qin Feiyang fiercely, as if he wanted to skin him alive. That's too much. Even if he's on death row, he should announce his crime before he's executed. Shang Guanxiu, you've gone too far. You like to ban people so much, right? Then ban us too. Even if you don't ban me, I won't come to the treasure pavilion anymore. This place makes me sick. It's disgusting. Everyone's faces were full of disdain. It's not like this, Shang Guanxiu was anxious. The situation was getting out of hand. There was no way to end it. If it's not like this, then what is it? You have to give a reasonable explanation. You can't bully people just because the treasure pavilion is powerful. Qin Feiyang said. Shang Guanxiu said to himself, can you stop talking? I'm begging you. You're the steward of the treasure pavilion, the disciple of the pavilion leader, and the sister of the tribunal leader. How can I let you beg me? But I just don't feel good. My sister, Fire Lotus, and my 2 subordinates were all kicked out by you. Qin Feiyang telepathically said. Can I apologize to you? If not, I'll compensate you for your loss. I just beg you to stop making trouble. Shang Guanxiu said helplessly. Then do something. Do you need me to teach you how to apologize? Qin Feiyang sneered. Shang Guanxiu gritted his teeth and glared at Qin Feiyang. He glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, everyone, it's my fault for not thinking things through. I apologize to Zhang Haotian and Zhang Hulian right now. After that, Shang Guanxiu looked at Qin Feiyang and Zhang Haotian, bowed and said, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. Qin Feiyang hesitated. He looked at the crowd behind him and asked, everyone, what do you think we should do? We'll do whatever you say. Anyway, we'll support you. Everyone shouted. Thank you for your love and respect. I, Zhang Haotian, deserve this. Please accept my bow. Qin Feiyang bowed and said. Brother Zhang, you're welcome. We're on the side of justice. We can't bend to evil forces like the treasure pavilion. Everyone laughed. Evil forces? Shang Guanxiu's mouth twitched. Thank you. Actually, this is just a small matter. Since Shangguan Xiu has apologized, let's be generous and forgive him. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Brother Zhang's magnanimity is well deserved. I'm impressed. The crowd sighed and looked at him with admiration. You're flattering me. After all, humans are not saints. Who can be faultless? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said with a smile. Seeing Qin Feiyang's humble attitude in front of the crowd, Shangguan Xiu was about to go crazy. He said to himself, Are you done? Qin Feiyang turned and looked at Shangguan Xiu with evil intentions. Shangguan Xiu's heart skipped a beat. His attitude suddenly changed. He walked to Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Young Master Jiang, it's too noisy outside. Let's go to the VIP room and talk. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He asked seriously, Is it appropriate for a nobody like me to go to your VIP room? Of course, of course. In the treasure pavilion, there's no difference in status. Once you enter the treasure pavilion, you're our distinguished guest. Shangguan Xiu said with a flattering smile. Is that so? Qin Feiyang did not believe him. Of course, of course. Please come in. Miss Fire Lotus, please come in too. Shangguan Xiu nodded and pushed the two of them into the treasure pavilion. Brother Jiang, I've heard a lot about you. Brother Jiang, can we have a few drinks together? I've admired you for a long time. The guests in the treasure pavilion were also very enthusiastic. Thank you, thank you. If there's a chance, I'll treat everyone to a drink. Qin Feiyang also bowed to them one by one. Shangguan Xiu snorted secretly. I didn't expect you to be so popular now. This is called the unpredictable world. It also proves a principle. Don't underestimate anyone. Steward, you're right. Qin Feiyang snickered secretly. You're so proud of yourself. Shangguan Xiu said disdainfully in his heart. He led Qin Feiyang and Li Mu straight to the third floor and entered a VIP room. Take a seat first. I'll come to see you after I send that distinguished guest away. Shangguan Xiu said coldly. He turned and walked directly to the VIP room next to him. Qin Dage, you've made her so obedient just like that. You're really something. Fire Lotus smiled in admiration. This is just a small matter. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. He looked at the VIP room next to him and murmured, Who's in that VIP room? Is it important who it is? Fire Lotus was puzzled. If it's someone else, it's not important. But if it's Mu Tianyang or Mu Qing, it'll be interesting. Let's go and have a look. Qin Feiyang called out and quietly walked to the door of the VIP room. He pressed his ear against the door and listened carefully. Is it Jiang Haotian? Other than him, who else can make such a big scene? This guy is not easy to deal with. You have to be careful. I know. This is the payment for the last batch of 9 transformation dragon blood elixirs. You can count it. We've worked together for so long. There's no need for that. A familiar conversation entered Qin Feiyang's ears. It's really Mu Qing. Qin Feiyang was shocked. He kicked the door open and saw Shangguan Xiu and Mu Qing sitting opposite each other in front of the tea table. Mu Qing was holding a cosmos bag in her hand. Mu Qing and Shangguan Xiu were stunned by the sudden situation. How could there be such a rude person? He didn't even knock on the door and just barged in. Shangguan Xiu was angry. He stood up and was about to scold him. But at the same time, Qin Feiyang stepped forward and landed beside the tea table. He snatched the cosmos bag from Mu Qing's hand. Bastard, what are you doing? Mu Qing came to her senses. She looked at the cosmos bag in Qin Feiyang's hand and shouted angrily. Chapter 2043. Don't be nervous. I just want to see how much you've earned this time. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He lowered his head to check the heaven-earth pouch, and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. I'll be a fool if I believe you. Mu Qing snorted secretly and went forward to snatch the heaven-earth pouch. Bang! Qin Feiyang did not even raise his head. He only waved his hand. Mu Qing immediately wailed and flew out like a meteorite, crashing into the chair beside her. With a crack, the chair shattered. Mu Qing also rolled on the ground in a sorry state. What? Sheng Guanxiu was stunned. It was only now that she noticed Qin Feiyang's cultivation. He was actually a perfected god of war. Mu Qing got up and stared at Qin Feiyang in shock. How long had it been? He had actually broken through to the perfected god of war. Fire Lotus walked to Qin Feiyang's side and asked curiously, "Brother, how much?" "Not bad. At least over 1,000,000. And as I expected, it's soul stones." Qin Feiyang smiled. Mu Qing said in a low voice, "It's only over 1,000,000. It shouldn't be a big deal to you." "You can't say that. Who would complain about having too many soul stones? Why don't you take these over 1,000,000 soul stones as compensation for me?" Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing playfully. "How dare you?" Mu Qing said angrily. Qin Feiyang was a little dissatisfied. He said, "You interrupted me halfway and caused me to lose so much. I haven't even settled the score with you. Now you can't even bear to part with these soul stones? You can only blame yourself for being useless." Mu Qing snorted coldly. "Yes, I'm useless. Give these soul stones to me. I don't want them now." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he threw the heaven-earth pouch to Mu Qing. Mu Qing heaved a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Then, she immediately put away her Qinkuan bag. She looked at Qin Feiyang with a cold smile and said, "I know that you don't care for these few soul stones. After all, you have obtained quite a lot of benefits from Feng Zihan." Feng Zihan? Gain? Sheng Guanxiu was taken aback. Looking at Qin Feiyang, his eyes lit up. Qin Feiyang glanced at Sheng Guanxiu. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Mu Qing. "What are you doing?" Mu Qing quickly. Qin Feiyang thought to himself, "Didn't Mu Tianyang teach you what to say and what not to say?" If anything happens to me, I promise that I'll drag you down with me." Qin Feiyang sneered. Then, he turned around and laughed, "Just kidding, just kidding. You guys continue. Fire Lotus, let's go." "Okay." Fire Lotus nodded. The two left the VIP room one after another. This bastard, Mu Qing stared at Qin Feiyang's back. Her eyes were fierce. But at the same time, she felt helpless. Although she was now a war god, she could not catch up with this person no matter how hard she tried. Just now, she did not even have the courage to resist. Sheng Guanxiu looked at Mu Qing. Then, he waved his hand and closed the door. "Brother Mu, you said that Jiang Haotian gained a lot from Feng Zihan? Did he have a private deal with Feng Zihan, so he let Feng Wenhai go?" "I don't know. Ask him yourself. I have something to do. Goodbye." After Mu Qing finished speaking, she activated an altar and left without looking back. When the altar disappeared, Sheng Guanxiu's eyes lit up. He turned and walked quickly out. Then, he entered the VIP room where Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus were. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus sat at the tea table and looked at Sheng Guanxiu with a smile. Sheng Guanxiu closed the door and raised his eyebrows. "Are you here to take revenge on me?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback and said gloomily, "Do I look like such a petty person?" "Very much so." Sheng Guanxiu snorted. "Tell me, what are you doing here?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "I'm here to ask. When are you going to cooperate with me?" "Cooperate with you? You can also refine the 9 transformation dragon blood elixir?" Sheng Guanxiu asked. "Of course. I can do anything that Mu Tianyang can do. Qin Feiyang nodded. What's the relationship between you two? Sometimes they look like friends, and sometimes they look like enemies who have no contact with each other. Sheng Guanqiu frowned. Does this have anything to do with our cooperation? Qin Feiyang asked. Sheng Guanqiu felt helpless. Why are these people so difficult to deal with? How about this? I'll be at a disadvantage. If you cooperate with me, you'll get 10% less than Mu Tianyang. Qin Feiyang said. Impossible. The treasure pavilion is very trustworthy. Since I've decided to cooperate with Mu Tianyang, I'll keep working with him. Sheng Guanqiu refused decisively. Are you sure? Qin Feiyang asked. Sheng Guanqiu said lightly, if there's nothing else, please leave. Sigh. Why are you so stubborn? Think about it. You have nothing to do with Mu Tianyang, but I'm different. Your sister and I are partners now. That means we're on the same side. I really don't know what you're thinking when you don't want to cooperate with your own people. Qin Feiyang said helplessly. My sister is my sister, and I am me. Please don't confuse us. Besides, what kind of friend are you? You're just a pawn. Sheng Guanqiu sneered. Sheng Guanqiu, be careful. Fire Lotus stood up suddenly and stared at Sheng Guanqiu, her eyes flashing coldly. Sheng Guanqiu glanced at Fire Lotus indifferently and did not take it to heart. Pawn, Qin Feiyang muttered to himself. He stood up and patted Fire Lotus's shoulder gently. He smiled and said, Girl, don't be angry. After all, she's telling the truth. We're just pawns. Brother, are you stupid? Can't you tell that she's humiliating you? Fire Lotus stomped her feet angrily. It's okay. I'm thick-skinned. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. He looked at Sheng Guanqiu and said, Since you've said so, I won't force you. Now, please take me to see the Deputy Pavilion Leader. See the Deputy Pavilion Leader? Sheng Guanqiu was stunned. He raised his eyebrows and said, It's useless even if you see him, because he's no longer involved in the treasure-seeking pavilion. That's not necessarily true. Qin Feiyang said. Don't think too highly of yourself. Even the big shots in Ninth Heaven Palace have to make an appointment in advance to see the Deputy Pavilion Leader. And you're just an ordinary outer disciple. What right do you have to see the Deputy Pavilion Leader? Sheng Guanqiu sneered. Qin Feiyang said, This is very important to the Deputy Pavilion Leader. If you stop him, I'm afraid you'll have to pay a heavy price in the future. Is that so? Sheng Guanqiu sneered. Believe me. If this matter is delayed because of you, I'm afraid even your master can't protect you. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Seeing Qin Feiyang's serious look, Sheng Guanqiu couldn't help but frown. Actually, there's no harm in telling you a little. What I'm going to tell you is related to the first elder's son. Qin Feiyang said. What? Sheng Guanqiu's eyes trembled. The first elder's son. How could he be related to such a person? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Don't worry. Think about it carefully. I'll wait. He was silent for a long time. Sheng Guanqiu said in a low voice, Wait a moment. I'll go and inform him first. Go ahead. Qin Feiyang smiled. Sheng Guanqiu immediately turned around and hurried out. After watching Sheng Guanqiu leave, Fire Lotus turned to Qin Feiyang and said in surprise, Qin Dage, are you thinking of, although the first elder's son's death has nothing to do with the Deputy Pavilion Leader, the first elder killed his way into the treasure hall because of this matter. I think the Deputy Pavilion Leader won't be able to let it go. Now, when I tell him that I know the truth, how do you think he'll react? Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Fire Lotus said, Of course he'll find the real culprit and prove his innocence. Yes. This is something we can use. Qin Feiyang nodded. Huo Lian came to a sudden realization. She sized up Qin Feiyang and sent a sound transmission. You seem to have a well-thought-out plan. Did you already plan this when you learned the truth from Guillaume? You can say that. After all, the situation is getting worse. On one hand, we have to deal with Feng Yuan. On the other hand, we have to be careful of Shengguan Fenglan and the First Elder. And this deputy pavilion leader is not only in a high position, but also very powerful. If we can stand with him, it will be of great help to us. Qin Feiyang sighed. That's true. Fire Lotus nodded. About half an hour passed. Sheng Guanxiu finally returned. He stood at the door and bowed. Please come in. As he finished speaking, a white-haired old man limped into the VIP room with a cane. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus exchanged a look and hurriedly got up. Sheng Guanxiu entered the VIP room and looked at Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus. This is the deputy pavilion leader of the treasure hall. Greetings, senior. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus bowed. No need to be so polite. Sit down and talk. The deputy pavilion leader smiled hoarsely. His old face looked very kind. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus returned to their seats. The deputy pavilion leader walked to the side of the tea table and put down his cane. Then, with Sheng Guanxiu's help, he slowly sat opposite Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at the deputy pavilion leader's lame leg and said suspiciously, Senior, your leg, Jiang Haotian, don't be rude. Sheng Guanxiu immediately shouted. It's okay. The deputy pavilion leader waved his hand at Sheng Guanxiu and smiled. The deputy pavilion leader of the treasure hall is actually a lame man. It's normal for you to be surprised. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Senior, I didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive me. It's okay. Let's get down to business. The deputy pavilion leader smiled. This, Qin Feiyang looked at Sheng Guanxiu. Sheng Guanxiu frowned. He was obviously afraid of being overheard by her. The deputy pavilion leader could tell. He smiled hoarsely and said, Miss Qiu, you can leave first. Sir, this, Sheng Guanxiu was a little worried. The deputy pavilion leader smiled and said, Although I'm a lame man, I still have my cultivation. With this young man's strength, he can't hurt me. All right. Sheng Guanxiu nodded. Before she left, she glared at Qin Feiyang fiercely. The deputy pavilion leader waved his hand gently and the door slowly closed. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Young man, can you tell me now? Chapter 2044. Qin Feiyang glanced at the door and said with a smile, Senior, it's better to set up a barrier. So cautious? The vice pavilion master was surprised. Qin Feiyang said, This is a serious matter. I have to be cautious. Okay. The vice pavilion master looked at Qin Feiyang deeply, then waved his hand, and a barrier appeared. Outside. Sheng Guanxiu was unhappy. He wanted to eavesdrop, but it turned out that he was guarding against a thief. Inside the barrier, Fire Lotus sat aside obediently. Qin Feiyang took out the jade of Qinghai and tea leaves, and said with a smile, Girl, help us make tea. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded with a smile, got up and squatted aside, and began to get busy. The vice pavilion master looked at the mask on Fire Lotus's face curiously. Why was she wearing a mask? Senior. Qin Feiyang said. The vice pavilion master immediately came back to his senses and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang asked, More than 10,000 years ago, a level 9 soul vein was born in the Sky Dragon Sea, right? Yes. This soul vein is currently in my treasure pavilion. The vice pavilion master nodded. Senior, you are so domineering. Back then, all the major forces swarmed over, including the former palace master of the Nine Heavens Palace, who is also the son of the Great Elder. Senior, you were able to suppress all the heroes and snatch the soul vein. Such heaven-defying means, I really admire you. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. The Vice Pavilion Master smiled and said, after all, I was young and full of vigor, but now I'm old and can't be compared to back then. Senior, you are too humble. However, although you obtained the soul vein, there were a lot of troubles later on. Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, the Vice Pavilion Master touched his lame leg, and a trace of hostility flashed in his eyes. But he hid it well. Even Qin Feiyang did not notice. However, his subconscious action of touching his lame leg caught Qin Feiyang's attention. Qin Feiyang could not help but speculate. Could it be that this lame leg had something to do with what happened back then? The Deputy Pavilion Master smiled and said, little friend, let's not beat around the bush and get straight to the point. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, all those years ago, the Grand Elder's son was heavily injured by you, and he was attacked by sea beasts on the way, causing him to lose his life in the Heavenly Dragon Sea. Senior, you probably haven't forgotten this matter, right? The Vice Pavilion Master remained silent for a while. Then, he sighed, this old man wants to forget, but I just can't. You must have noticed this leg of mine, right? Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. I'm all ears. The Vice Pavilion Master patted his crippled leg and smiled. This leg was caused by your Nine Heavens Palace's Great Elder. What? Qin Feiyang's expression suddenly changed. Fire Lotus was also surprised. Back then, the First Elder killed his way into the Treasure Pavilion. Although the Pavilion Master stopped him and saved his old life, in the end, he paid the price of one of his legs. The Vice Pavilion Master sighed. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, with Senior's cultivation, even if it's shattered, it can be reborn. But why is it crippled? It's a type of poison. The First Elder personally concocted it. No pill, not even a deity detoxification pill, can remove it. The Vice Pavilion Master said. The First Elder knows how to concoct poison? Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus were both surprised. You've just entered the Nine Heavens Palace, so it's normal that you don't know the methods of your First Elder. He's actually an expert in using poison. In the entire northern region, if he says he's second, no one would dare to say they're first. And the poison he concocted, apart from himself, no one can remove it. This old man was poisoned with a type of poison called bone-corroding spirit thread. This type of poison, just like its name, is hard to disperse. Once it enters the body, it will fuse with all the bones in the body. It can't be refined or dispelled. Others think that this old man has been cultivating in seclusion all these years, but in reality, this old man has been suppressing this poison. Because if I don't suppress it, this poison won't just corrode this thigh, it will corrode all the bones in my body. The Vice Pavilion Master sighed deeply, looking a little lonely. Bone-corroding spirit thread, Qin Feiyang mumbled, feeling a chill down his spine. He never thought that the First Elder would have such a terrifying side to him. Brother, the tea is ready. Fire Lotus poured 2 cups of tea, pushing 1 cup in front of Qin Feiyang and the other in front of the Vice Pavilion Master. Thank you. Miss, I don't know if it's an illusion, but why do I feel that your temperament is a little familiar? The Vice Pavilion Master looked at Fire Lotus suspiciously. Is that so? Fire Lotus seemed a little flustered. But Qin Feiyang was surprised and asked, Senior, you know Fire Lotus? No, I don't. The Vice Pavilion Master shook his head and looked at Fire Lotus. Miss, why don't you take off your mask and let this old man take a look? This, Fire Lotus hesitated for a moment and waved it off with a smile. Forget it, I won't cause trouble for you guys. You guys continue. Qin Feiyang said, Fire Lotus, let this senior take a look. He's experienced and knowledgeable. Perhaps he might know you? That's not good. What if he's up to no good? Fire Lotus muttered to herself. That's true. You can't judge a book by its cover. Qin Feiyang mumbled and looked at the Vice Pavilion Master with a smile. Senior, please have some tea. The Vice Pavilion Master did not insist. He picked up the teacup and sniffed it. Then, he tasted the tea and praised, "Not bad. These tea leaves should have been cultivated in a herb farm, right?" Qin Feiyang said, "Seems like you're also a person of the way of tea, senior." "To be honest, I like to drink tea when I'm free. Actually, I have such tea leaves too. Perhaps they're even better than this." The vice pavilion master laughed hoarsely. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. "Huh, seems like I've met a kindred spirit this time." Looking at Qin Feiyang's greedy look, the vice pavilion master could not help but laugh. Qin Feiyang smiled awkwardly and said, "Let's get down to business. Actually, there's something else behind the death of the great elder's son." "Something else?" The vice pavilion master was slightly taken aback. He immediately put down the teacup and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang said, "The great elder's son was not attacked by sea beasts." "Then what is it?" The vice pavilion master suddenly rose to his feet. His slightly cloudy eyes instantly became extremely spirited. There was even a terrifying sharpness in them. "It's Feng Yuan. He secretly killed the great elder's son. He also killed all the people who came with him." Qin Feiyang said. "What?" The vice pavilion master was stunned. Qin Feiyang did not speak again. While drinking tea, he patiently waited for the vice pavilion master to calm down. Because no one would be able to calm down when they suddenly heard such news. "Feng Yuan, why would it be him? Why would he do this?" the vice pavilion master murmured. His old face was full of disbelief. After a long time, the vice pavilion master finally calmed down and slowly returned to his seat. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and frowned slightly. Qin Feiyang said, "Senior, are you thinking that I have a grudge against Feng Yuan, so I fabricated such a rumor and asked you to help me deal with him? In other words, I'm borrowing a knife to kill him. You even know what I'm thinking. Little friend, your insight is really amazing." The vice pavilion master laughed. "Senior, you flatter me. If it were me, I would think the same, so it's not difficult to guess." Qin Feiyang said. The vice pavilion master said with a smile, "Then, little friend, please show me strong evidence." Qin Feiyang asked, "Does Guiyong count?" "Guiyong?" The vice pavilion master frowned. "Guiyong is Feng Yuan's confidant, but now he's under my control. I learned this from him." Qin Feiyang said. Yes. There is such a person. I heard that this time, you were able to fight back against Feng Wenhai because of him." The vice pavilion master nodded in realization and asked, "Then does he have solid evidence in his hands?" "No solid evidence. But I peeked into Guiyong's inner thoughts, and he didn't lie at all." Qin Feiyang said. "No solid evidence." The vice pavilion master pondered for a moment and shook his head. "Little friend, if you say that there's no solid evidence, it's just your one-sided story. How do you expect me to believe you? I know that these words alone can't make you believe me. But I can help you look for evidence." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "Help me look for evidence?" The vice pavilion master was stunned and said with a smile, "Little friend, if I may offend you, I don't think you're such a kind person." "Of course. Who would be so free to meddle in other people's business? Moreover, the target this time is Feng Yuan, and it has something to do with the first elder." Qin Feiyang said. "Quite direct. Then tell me your conditions." The vice pavilion master smiled and seemed to admire Qin Feiyang's straightforward character. "First, I hope that you can help me at critical moments in the future. Second, cancel the cooperation with Mu Tianyang and let Shengguan Qiu work with me. Third, the deal between me and Shengguan Qiu must be in soul stones. These are the conditions of this junior." Qin Feiyang said. "This," the vice pavilion master hesitated. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "I believe that these three conditions are not difficult for you. The second and third conditions are not difficult either. I know a little about the cooperation between Little Chiu and Mu Tianyang. Since you've made such a request, it means that you also have the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon Pill and the 9 Transformation Dragon Blood Pill. So it doesn't matter who I work with. But the first condition is a little difficult for me. You know that I have a grudge with the First Elder. If I help you, the First Elder will be unhappy. I don't care. After all, he won't dare to do anything to me now. But you're different. You're a disciple of the 9th Heaven Palace. If he wants to make things difficult for you, you'll have a hard time in the 9th Heaven Palace. The Vice Pavilion Master said. To be honest, I'm already having a hard time in the 9th Heaven Palace. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come to you. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. What do you mean? The Vice Pavilion Master looked at him curiously. This, on the contrary, Qin Feiyang hesitated. Chapter 2045. Only the 3 of us know about today's conversation, so you can speak freely. The Vice Pavilion Master's eyes were extremely sharp, and he instantly saw through Qin Feiyang's concerns. And his friendly tone was irresistible. Qin Feiyang was silent for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Some things are better left unsaid. Anyway, as long as you can help me at a critical moment, I'll be very grateful. As for the First Elder, I'll deal with him." The Vice Pavilion Master was a little surprised and said with a smile, "I didn't expect you to be such a cautious person. It's better to be cautious. In case you're beyond redemption." Qin Feiyang sighed. Makes sense. The Vice Pavilion Master nodded and asked, "Then you have to tell me the reason why Feng Yuan assassinated the First Elder's son." "I can tell you. It's because of power and status." Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. "I see." The Vice Pavilion Master nodded, and his eyes gradually turned cold. "If what you said is true, then sooner or later, I'll find him personally and settle the score. Don't worry. I'll do my best to get the evidence." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Okay. Let's agree on this." The Vice Pavilion Master smiled hoarsely. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you in the future." "You're welcome." The Vice Pavilion Master waved his hand and took out an image crystal. "To facilitate communication in the future, let's establish a contract bridge." "That's exactly what I want." Qin Feiyang quickly took out the image crystal. After the contract bridge was established, the Vice Pavilion Master took out a long jade box from his interspatial ring. This jade box was 1 foot long and 5 fingers wide. The surface was crystal clear, and there were wisps of light. At first glance, one could tell that it was made of peerless divine jade. The Vice Pavilion Master put the jade box on the tea table and said with a smile, "It's the first time we've met. Consider this a gift from me. I hope you don't mind." Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other with a trace of suspicion in their eyes. Immediately after, Qin Feiyang grabbed the jade box and opened the lid. A strong fragrance of tea immediately assailed his nose. Inside the jade box was an entire box of tea leaves. Every single tea leaf was like a precious jade that flickered with a crystalline light, and it was even to the extent that one could sense a strand of dense divine essence from them. The Deputy Pavilion Master smiled and said, "These are the tea leaves that I personally cultivated and brewed." Qin Feiyang took out a tea leaf and put it in his mouth. The fragrance of the tea immediately spread throughout his body. All the pores on his body opened up involuntarily. He had never encountered such tea leaves before. It was simply the king of all teas. A long while later, Qin Feiyang's mind finally withdrew from the fragrance of the tea. He kept the jade box as though he had received a treasure. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Elder. As the saying goes, a sword befits a hero. This tea is the same. Only those who understand tea, love tea, and cherish tea are worthy of good tea leaves." The Deputy Pavilion Master said with a smile. Obviously. In this aspect alone, he liked Qin Feiyang very much. "Elder, I really don't deserve your praise. I will definitely cherish it. Since the matter has been settled, I will take my leave first. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said. Fire Lotus also put away the beauties of Qinghai. Take your leave? The deputy pavilion master was slightly taken aback. He asked suspiciously, aren't you going to talk about the cooperation with Miss Chiu? Of course, we will talk about it. But now is not the time. Qin Feiyang said with a playful smile. You little brat, the deputy pavilion master shook his head and said with a smile, well, you young people can deal with your own affairs. I only have one request. Don't make things too difficult for her. I won't. Don't worry. Then I will take my leave first. Qin Feiyang said. Take care. The deputy pavilion master nodded. Qin Feiyang immediately opened an altar and left with Fire Lotus. What an interesting young man. The deputy pavilion master shook his head and smiled. Then he lowered his head and muttered to himself. Was this matter really related to Feng Yuan? On the stairway to heaven, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus walked side by side. Not only did the negotiation end smoothly, but I also got a box of good tea. This trip was not in vain. Qin Feiyang was full of smiles. Look at how happy you are. I don't believe that the tea leaves he gave can be compared with a divine artifact. Fire Lotus pursed her lips. You don't understand. Even if you give me a peak-level divine artifact, I won't exchange these tea leaves. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Is it that exaggerated? Fire Lotus was stunned. It's not exaggerated at all. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Anyway, I don't understand. Fire Lotus shook her head and suddenly frowned. Looking at Qin Feiyang, she said, Brother, I suddenly thought of something. You go back first. What is it? Qin Feiyang stopped and looked at Fire Lotus suspiciously. It's a private matter. Don't worry about it. Huolian giggled and ran down without looking back. This girl, Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and quickly disappeared into the Ninth Heaven Palace. Treasure Pavilion. VIP Room. The deputy pavilion master was still sitting alone at the tea table, his brows knitted together. Swish. Suddenly, a figure appeared. It was Fire Lotus. The deputy pavilion master looked up at Fire Lotus and asked suspiciously, Little girl, is there anything else? Little girl, Fire Lotus lowered her head and murmured. She suddenly looked up at the deputy pavilion master. Her cold eyes emitted a great sense of oppression. Little girl, what do you mean? The deputy pavilion master was shocked. Fire Lotus did not answer. She slowly took off her mask. What? Looking at Fire Lotus's face, the deputy pavilion master's face suddenly changed. He exclaimed, How could it be you? Fire Lotus put on her mask again and said, If you know it's me, then you should know that Jiang Haotian did not lie to you. The deputy pavilion master looked at Fire Lotus in a daze. After a long time, he came to his senses and said, May I ask, who is Jiang Haotian? That's not a question you should ask. You just need to know that you will do whatever he says. Fire Lotus said coldly. Okay. The deputy pavilion master nodded. By the way, warn Shengguan Xiu not to take advantage of me. It won't do her any good. Also, don't tell anyone about my appearance. After saying that, Fire Lotus immediately opened the altar and turned to leave. The deputy pavilion master hurriedly got up to see her off. After the altar disappeared, he returned to his seat, and his entire body sank into a sense of powerlessness. I didn't expect it to be her. Who on earth is this Jiang Haotian? Why is she protecting him by his side? At this moment, the deputy pavilion master had too many questions in his mind. Girl Qiu, come in. Suddenly, he shouted. The door opened. Shengguan Xiu walked in and asked suspiciously, Have they all left? Yes. The deputy pavilion master nodded. He picked up his walking stick and stood up. He looked at Sheng Wanxiu and said in a low voice, "Terminate the cooperation with Mu Tianyang immediately." "What?" "Sir, the cooperation has been agreed upon long ago. How can we terminate it? Won't this damage the reputation of the treasure pavilion?" Sheng Wanxiu said hurriedly. "That's not important. After terminating the cooperation with Mu Tianyang, go find Jiang Haotian personally. You must make him agree to cooperate with the treasure pavilion," the deputy pavilion master said. This, Sheng Wanxiu was completely dumbfounded. "Also, whatever Jiang Haotian needs in the future, you must satisfy him unconditionally. Girl Qiu, I'm not joking with you this time. You must do as I say. Do you understand?" the deputy pavilion master said. "Yes." Sheng Wanxiu nodded. He was a little dizzy. What was going on? Late that night, two uninvited guests barged into Qin Feiyang's cave abode angrily. But there was no one in the cave abode. One of them glanced at the cave abode and shouted, "Jiang Haotian, I know you're in the castle. Get out." Swoosh. Qin Feiyang appeared out of thin air. He looked at the two people in front of him and said with a smile, "You two are in a good mood today. You actually have time to come here to play. Are you bored in the inner sect and want to experience life in the outer sect?" The two people were none other than Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing. "Stop pretending. Why did Sheng Wanxiu terminate the cooperation with us? Don't tell me. It has nothing to do with you," Mu Qing said angrily. "So soon?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. He thought that the deputy pavilion master would think about it for a while. He did not expect that he would immediately terminate the cooperation with Mu Tianyang. Mu Qing pointed at Qin Feiyang angrily and looked at Mu Tianyang. "Master, did you see that? It's him." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't point. Be careful or I'll chop off your dog paw." Hearing that, Mu Qing instinctively shrank back. Mu Tianyang frowned and said, "Qin Feiyang, what do you mean? Do you still need to ask?" "Of course I'm taking revenge for that arrow," Qin Feiyang said. "Despicable." Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. "Weren't you despicable when you stopped the cooperation between me and Sheng Wanxiu?" Qin Feiyang sneered. "Yes. I admit that we were in the wrong first, but you don't have to be so ruthless. My cooperation with Sheng Wanxiu has just gotten on the right track, and you're doing this. Can't you wait for me to earn more soul stones?" Mu Tianyang frowned. "Sorry, I didn't think so much. But, with our relationship, I don't think I need to be so considerate for you, right?" Qin Feiyang shrugged and said lightly. "After all, we're old friends. Do you have to be so ruthless?" Mu Tianyang seemed to admit defeat. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "You came to me just to say this?" Mu Tianyang struggled for a while and sighed. "Give me a way out." Qin Feiyang stared blankly and asked in astonishment, "Are you begging me?" "Yes. I'm begging you." Mu Tianyang nodded. Now that things had come to this, he could only compromise. Because the treasure school was his only source of income now. Qin Feiyang laughed heartily and said, "This is truly unprecedented. You, Mu Tianyang, actually humbly came to beg me. I've already put down my pride. Don't be greedy. If you really piss me off, we'll fight to the death and die together," Mu Tianyang said in a low voice. "Don't be agitated, don't be agitated." Qin Feiyang quickly comforted him. Mu Tianyang really couldn't be pushed too hard. Otherwise, he would expose his identity in a rage. That would be bad. He pondered for a while. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and said with a smile, "How about this, let's make money amicably." Chapter 2046. Harmony breeds wealth? Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, "How?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "In the future, we will split the soul stones we earn in the treasure hall equally." "Are you so kind?" Mu Tianyang and Mu Qin were like discovering a new continent. This was too strange. When did he become so generous? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Of course not. I have conditions." "I knew it." Mu Qing muttered and asked, "What conditions?" "Help me deal with Feng Yuan. In addition, isn't the resource hall recruiting people this time? Let's go in together." Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and said. Mu Qing's face changed, and hurriedly said to Mu Tianyang, "Ancestor, you can't do that." Mu Tianyang frowned. Qin Feiyang's purpose was already very obvious. He wanted to drag him down completely. Qin Feiyang said, "I won't force you. Take your time to think about it." Ancestor, Mu Qing was burning with anxiety. If he really agreed to Qin Feiyang, it would be blatantly going against Feng Yuan. At that time, Feng Yuan would definitely not let them go. A moment passed. Mu Tianyang sighed and said, "You can't have both the bear's paw and the fish." "Okay, I promise you." "Haha, happy cooperation." Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand and laughed. Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes and said with a frown, "I'm a little puzzled." "Say it." Qin Feiyang said. "Before entering the Ninth Heaven Palace, I invited you to cooperate more than once, but you always had a dismissive attitude. So why do you propose cooperation now?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "Isn't it because I'm afraid that you will betray me in desperation? Don't I know you? Don't use such an excuse to fool me. If I'm not wrong, you should be in bigger trouble now. You can't deal with it alone, so you want to find someone to help you." Mu Tianyang sneered. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He shook his head and said with a smile, "No one knows me better than Brother Tianyang." "Is that true?" Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said angrily. "Who did you provoke this time? We're not outsiders, so there's no harm in telling you. The people we provoked this time are Shengguan Fenglan and the First Elder." Qin Feiyang sighed. "What? Shengguan, the Elder? Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. When did this bastard provoke these two terrifying existences? "You don't know, they are the ones who want to deal with Feng Yuan, and I'm just a chess piece in their hands." Qin Feiyang said. "There's such a thing?" Mu Qing was surprised. Mu Tianyang said, "So when you didn't kill Feng Wenhai in the square, it was equivalent to disobeying their wishes?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Then it seems that as I expected, you really have a private deal with Feng Zihan. And this deal is not a small amount, otherwise you wouldn't have taken such a big risk." Mu Tianyang said. "Yes. 4 billion soul stones." Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. "What?" Both of them were dumbfounded. They didn't expect it to be 4 billion. "Ancestor, we shouldn't have intervened in this matter. Although we haven't seen the elder, even Qin Feiyang, this bastard, is so afraid of him. You can imagine that his means are definitely not ordinary terrifying. If you offend him, you will definitely not have a good ending." Mu Qing said telepathically. Mu Tianyang was silent. "Both of you, I have told you these secrets truthfully. If you go back on your words at the last minute, don't blame me for being ruthless. As you said, at most, we will fight to the death and die together." Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and said. "Fight to the death with us? Are you joking?" Mu Qing sneered. "Do you think I'm joking? Then why don't we give it a try?" Qin Feiyang's face was full of ridicule. Mu Qing frowned. With this person's means, such a small matter was really not difficult for him. Mu Tianyang pondered for a while, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "This time, you want to enter the resource hall. Is it also Shengguan Fenglan and the elder's idea?" Brother Tianyang, you are indeed a generation's emperor. You understand it immediately. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Mu Tianyang sighed and said, they let you enter the resource hall and fight to the death with Feng Yuan, while they benefit from behind. What a good method. Yes. Look at how pitiful I am. Qin Feiyang said helplessly. Keep pretending. Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? Actually, you also want to go to the resource hall. Mu Tianyang snorted. Ancestor, the resource hall is like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den for him. Why does he still want to go in? Mu Qing was puzzled. Mu Tianyang said, because the vein of souls is in the resource hall. Mu Qing's eyes trembled, and she looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. You even dare to have ideas about the vein of souls. Do you want to die? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, wealth comes from danger. Huh, it's getting more and more interesting. Okay, let's cooperate as usual. But I have a condition. If we really get the vein of souls, we have to share it equally. Mu Tianyang laughed and looked at Qin Feiyang. Crazy. Both of you are crazy. Mu Qing looked at the two of them. They were totally digging their own graves. No problem. Qin Feiyang nodded without hesitation. Then, he glanced at Mu Qing and Mu Tianyang and said, you have to educate this descendant of yours. You are too timid. It's not your style at all. You are simply embarrassing yourself. You are too much. Mu Qing suddenly became angry. Am I? I'm just telling the truth. Qin Feiyang shrugged. Ahem. Mu Tianyang coughed and said, Mu Qing, regarding this, you really should learn from Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, see? Even your ancestor said so. What else do you have to say? Ancestor, you, Mu Qing had a stomach full of resentment, but because of Mu Tianyang, she dared not say it out. She could only keep it in her heart. Don't be unconvinced. You and Qin Feiyang are real peers. But look at Qin Feiyang. His words and actions are so steady and mature. Look at you. You are like a child. You are not at the same level at all. Mu Tianyang scolded mercilessly. Yes, yes, yes. I will work hard to improve myself. I will learn from him. Mu Qing nodded repeatedly. After being scolded by Mu Tianyang, she really felt a little ashamed. She felt that she was indeed very different from Qin Feiyang. It's good that you know your shortcomings. Mu Tianyang smiled with relief. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he stretched out his hand and said with a smile, okay, I wish us a happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Qin Feiyang also stretched out his hand and shook it tightly. Mu Qing looked at the two of them with a trace of a smile in her eyes. Once these two people reached an agreement, it was destined to set off a storm. Qin Feiyang let go of his hand and said with a smile, since we have reached an agreement, let's divide the soul stones. Divide the soul stones? The two of them were stunned. Yes. Didn't you get more than 1,000,000 soul stones from the treasure house during the day? Qin Feiyang said. Mu Tianyang's face darkened. Even before the cooperation? Mu Qing also looked at Qin Feiyang with disdain. She had never seen such a shameless person. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang mockingly, saying, sure, we can divide the 1,000,000 soul stones, but shouldn't you also take out the 4,000,000,000 soul stones you got from Feng Zihan and let us divide them? Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. Her appetite was even bigger than his. Next. Regarding the matter of dividing the soul stones, the three of them had a tacit understanding and did not mention it again. After secretly plotting for a while, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing stood up and left. After the two of them left, Fire Lotus also returned. Fire Lotus entered the cave and asked, did I see wrongly just now? I think I saw Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing. No, it's them. Qin Feiyang laughed. What are they doing here? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. Ugh. Fire Lotus was stunned. Was he really planning to obtain the Nine Heavens Palace's soul vein? She asked, are you sure you want to split it equally with him? Split it equally? How can we split it equally? Mu Tianyang also knows in his heart that it's impossible for me to split it equally with him. Of course, it's impossible for him to split it equally with me. When the time comes to snatch it, it'll all depend on our own abilities. But there are some things that only you know. There's no need to expose them. Qin Feiyang laughed. Fire Lotus heard this and was speechless. Are you tired of scheming against each other like this? It's tiring. But there's no other way. This is the way of the world today. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, asking curiously, where have you been all day? I was just bored, so I went around. Fire Lotus laughed. Qin Feiyang helplessly said, if you're bored, you can cultivate. Aren't you just wasting your time? Yes, yes, yes. I'll definitely work hard in the future. Right, when are we going to report to the inner sect? Fire Lotus asked. Qin Feiyang thought for a bit and said, tomorrow morning. Help me inform Hui. Fire Lotus said, I've asked around. Actually, we don't need to stay in the inner sect. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was startled and asked suspiciously. Fire Lotus said, we can be like senior brother Feng Zi and go to the inner sect to register, then continue to stay in the outer sect. There's such a thing? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Normal people definitely can't, but you're an exception. You're now a famous person in our Nine Heavens Palace. Who dares to force you? Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. You're teasing me too. Qin Feiyang helplessly glanced at Fire Lotus and said, since we're already here, let's just take things as they come. Since we're going to the inner sect, then let's go. The next day. The sun slowly rose from the horizon. Early morning. Qin Feiyang also called Qin Rushuang out. After all, Qin Rushuang was now a disciple of the Nine Heavens Palace. It wouldn't be right if he didn't go there personally. After this period of seclusion, Qin Rushuang had also stepped into the advanced war god realm and was not far from the perfect war god realm. After tidying up, the three of them walked out of the cave. After Hui came out, they flew towards the inner sect together. Brother Jiang, Sister Rushuang, your speed is a bit fast. How long has it been since you entered the Nine Heavens Palace? It seems like it's only been a little over a month. You actually broke through 2 small realms consecutively. Hui noticed Qin Feiyang and Qin Rushuang's cultivation and was tongue-tied. Chapter 2047. Hearing Hui's words, Qin Feiyang and Qin Rushuang looked at each other and realized that something was wrong. Their cultivation had indeed improved too quickly. In just a month, they had broken through 2 small realms. Even if they had enough soul stones, it was impossible. If this were to spread, it would definitely arouse suspicion. Qin Rushuang said telepathically, why don't we hide our cultivation? I'm afraid it's too late now. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Yesterday, he had openly entered Sky Dragon City. His cultivation must have been exposed. Qin Rushuang frowned and said, if someone asks, how should we answer? This, Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. Hui asked, Brother Jiang, did you take some divine elixir? Divine elixir? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He looked at Hui speechlessly and said, will you give it to me? I don't have such an elixir. Hui laughed. That's right. How can there be such an elixir in this world? Now that things have come to this, I won't hide it from you. Actually, our cultivation has always been between perfect and advanced war god. Qin Feiyang said calmly. What do you mean? Hui was stunned. What I mean is, we have always hidden our cultivation. As for the reason, it's naturally because we want to keep a low profile. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Now, he could only think of this excuse. Is that so? Why don't I believe it? Hua Yi looked at the two suspiciously. It's up to you to believe it or not. Qin Rushwang said coldly. Hua Yi laughed dryly and turned to Fire Lotus. He asked, Sister Fire Lotus, don't tell me you're also hiding your cultivation? Guess. Fire Lotus smiled mockingly. How can I guess? Hua Yi was extremely helpless. Qin Feiyang glanced at Hua Yi and said with a smile, Brother Hua, don't be so surprised. Actually, you're also hiding your cultivation. Me? No, no. I am a true great success war god. That's not right. After these days of seclusion, I've also broken through to the perfect war god realm. Hua Yi waved his hands. He released a bit of his aura. He really was a perfect war god. But Qin Feiyang and the others didn't believe that this was Hua Yi's true strength. After all, how could an existence that even the half-step divine Lord Black Dragon be afraid of be a simple character? During the conversation, the four of them passed through the square where the battlefield was, and a towering mountain gradually came into view. From afar, it was densely packed. They were even taller and more majestic than the giant peaks of the outer sect. They were like giant swords that could split the heavens, piercing through the clouds. That was the inner sect. The inner sect was the same as the outer sect. They were all immortals' caves carved out of the various huge peaks. However, in the center of the inner sect, there were two giant peaks that were about 1,000 feet tall. On top of each peak, there was a divine tower. The two divine pagodas both had 10 floors and were about 1,000 feet tall. They were like two kings standing in the air. Among them, the divine pagoda on the left seemed to be made of pure gold. It shone with golden light and was extremely eye-catching. The divine pagoda on the right emitted a dazzling purple gold light. What's that? Fire Lotus looked at the two divine pagodas curiously. You don't even know this? Hua Yi looked at the three of them in shock. Qin Feiyang and the others shook their heads. Oh my god. You've been in the Empyrean Palace for so long. Don't you know how to ask around? Hua Yi shook his head speechlessly. Qin Rushwang said, Do you think everyone is as free as you? Hua Yi smiled bitterly. The first thing one had to do after arriving at an unfamiliar place was to figure out the situation. This was human nature. How could it be called free? Those two ancient pagodas are called the Pure Gold Divine Pagoda and the Purple Gold Divine Pagoda. They are the cultivation grounds of the Earth-ranking and Heaven-ranking disciples. Hua Yi said. Those on the Heaven-ranking and Earth-ranking receive such treatment. Fire Lotus was surprised. Of course. Those on the two rankings are the strongest among the disciples. The Empyrean Palace will definitely give them special treatment. Hua Yi said. What's special about them? Qin Feiyang and the others were curious. Hua Yi looked at the two pagodas with yearning in his eyes and said word by word, Time array. What? Time array. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Hua Yi looked at the three of them in surprise and said, You know about the time array too? I've heard a little about it. Qin Feiyang smiled. Amazing. I only learned about the time array after going to the Empyrean Palace and asking around. And you guys have heard about it before. You're not simple. Hua Yi said meaningfully. Qin Rushwang raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, Why are you talking nonsense? Can't you say something useful? Okay. Hua Yi nodded and looked at the Pure Gold Divine Pagoda. The Pure Gold Divine Pagoda is the cultivation ground of the Earth-ranking disciples. There are 10 floors in total, and the law of time on each floor is different. Different? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The higher you go, the stronger the time array. On the first floor, 1 day is equivalent to 2 days. In other words, 1 day of cultivation on the first floor is equivalent to 2 days outside. On the second floor, 1 day is equivalent to 3 days. On the third floor, 1 day is equivalent to 4 days. On the fourth floor, 1 day is equivalent to 5 days. And so on. Huai said. Not bad. Fire Lotus nodded. Ah. Huai looked at Fire Lotus in astonishment. Such a heaven-defying time array was only considered not bad? Qin Feiyang asked, what about the purple gold divine pagoda where the heaven-ranking disciples are? The purple gold divine pagoda is naturally even more terrifying. On the first floor, 1 day is equivalent to 10 days. On the second floor, 1 day is equivalent to 20 days. On the third floor, 1 day is equivalent to 30 days. Counting in this order, 1 day on the 10th floor of the pure gold divine pagoda is equivalent to 100 days. In other words, 1 day of cultivation on the 10th floor is equivalent to more than 3 months outside. Don't you think the law of time is terrifying? Huai said. Terrifying, terrifying. Qin Feiyang and the other two nodded. But in their hearts, they didn't think so. So what if 1 day was equivalent to 3 months? The law of time in the castle was 1 day equivalent to 1 year. It was a huge difference. Qin Feiyang instantly lost interest. In the eyes of the other disciples, these two divine pagodas were cultivation holy lands that they yearned for even in their dreams. But in his eyes, it didn't have any meaning at all. Huai looked at the purple gold divine pagoda and said with fascination, I really hope that 1 day, I can become an earth-ranking disciple and enter the 10th floor. No, if I can enter the first floor, I will be satisfied. There will be a chance. Qin Feiyang patted Huai's shoulder and said with a smile. It's difficult. Huai shook his head and sighed. Do you know how to become an earth-ranking and heaven-ranking disciple? Qin Feiyang shook his head. I guess that you don't know anything. Huai rolled his eyes at him and explained, these 2 rankings are for the 10 strongest war gods and the 10 strongest divine lords. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said, so, the earth ranking is for war gods and the heaven ranking is for divine lords? That's right. Huai nodded. Isn't that simple? Let's not talk about the heaven ranking. Let's talk about the earth ranking. With your strength, you can easily get the first place on the earth ranking. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. How can it be that simple? Think about it. Just the outer sect disciples alone are more than 8 million. If you include the inner sect disciples, there will be more than 10 million people. To be able to suppress so many people and enter the earth ranking, which one of them is a simple person? As for the heaven ranking, don't even think about it. Everyone on the heaven ranking is a perfect divine lord. They can kill me 1,000 times over with just a flick of their finger. Huai shook his head. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. In that case, the first place on the heaven ranking, Feng Zihan, was also a perfect divine lord. A perfect divine lord was indeed a terrifying existence. Fire Lotus said with a smile, then go to the earth ranking first. I believe that with your strength, it won't be a problem. Will it really not be a problem? Huai asked. You must have confidence in yourself. Fire Lotus said. All right. I'll give it a try when I break through to perfect divine lord. Huai gritted his teeth and nodded. I have 2 questions. First, the earth ranking is for war gods. In other words, only war gods can enter the earth ranking. Then, what will happen to the disciples on the earth ranking after they break through to divine lord? Will they continue to dominate the earth ranking? Or will they be removed from the earth ranking? Second question, the heaven ranking is for divine lords. Then, how will the disciples on the earth ranking be arranged when they break through to a higher realm? Qin Rushuang looked at Huai and asked suspiciously. First question, as long as a disciple breaks through to divine lord, no, a half-step divine lord, they must immediately leave the earth ranking and return to the status of a normal disciple. Because the earth ranking exists to encourage the disciples of war gods to work hard in their cultivation. Therefore, it can't be occupied by one person forever. Of course. In the past, there were many people who kept their cultivation at perfect Divine Lord and didn't break through to the earth ranking just to receive more soul stones. After all, the lowest amount of soul stones a disciple of the earth ranking receives every month is 10,000. To them, it's a considerable amount of income. As for the disciples of the heaven ranking, once they break through to Divine Lord and break through to a higher realm, they will enter a mysterious place. This place is called the Heavenly Palace. Hua Yi said. Heavenly Palace? Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned. What was this place? It said that the Heavenly Palace is directly managed by the Palace Master and the Vice Palace Master. But I heard that the Heavenly Palace isn't in Jiutian Palace. Hua Yi frowned. Not in Jiutian Palace? Qin Feiyang was surprised and asked, then where is the Heavenly Palace? I didn't find out. It seems that the Heavenly Palace is a secret in Jiutian Palace. Hua Yi shook his head. Heavenly Palace, Qin Feiyang mumbled. Only disciples above Divine Lord could enter. This kind of mysterious place really made people curious. We're here. Hua Yi raised his head and looked ahead. His gaze locked onto a sword peak not far away and he smiled. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked over and saw a large hall on top of the sword peak. On top of the hall, there were 3 big words. Inner Sect Duty Hall. Hua Yi suddenly transmitted his voice, you guys have to be careful. His tone was very serious. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and the other two were suspicious. This inner sect elder is called Jin Yunchang. He is Jin Fatso's father and Feng Yuan's son-in-law. Hua Yi thought. Feng Yuan's son-in-law? Enemies are really bound to meet on a narrow road. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Chapter 2048. Deacon's Hall. Basically, no one came here. This was because the inner sect disciples would go directly to the resource hall to collect soul stones. If there were any disputes, they would basically go to the battlefield to resolve them. Therefore, the inner sect Deacon's Hall was considered the quietest place. Inside the hall, a middle-aged man in a golden robe was lying on a chair, humming a tune while drinking tea. He was extremely satisfied. This person was Jin Yunchang. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 walked to the door, looked at Jin Yunchang, and cupped their hands. Greetings, Elder Jin, we are here to report. Jin Yunchang was stunned, opened his eyes, looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 3, and an imperceptible cold light flashed in his eyes. Immediately after, he got up and walked to the desk, and said indifferently, come in. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 entered the hall one after another. Qin Rushwang said, this person doesn't look like Jin Fatso. This Jin Yunchang had a thin figure, and he looked gentle and refined. Jin Fatso, on the other hand, was fat all over. Hua Yi secretly laughed, you haven't seen Jin Fatso's mother. What do you mean? Qin Rushwang was suspicious. Hua Yi said, Jin Fatso takes after his mother's appearance. It can't be. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other. Why do you think this Jin Yunchang likes Feng Yuan's daughter? It's all because he wants to rely on Feng Yuan. Hua Yi sneered. I see. If there's a chance, I really want to see how outstanding Jin Fatso's mother is. Fire Lotus secretly thought. When the 4 of them walked to the desk, Jin Yunchang said, Jiang Haotian, Jiang Rushwang, Jiang Fire Lotus, Hua Yi, right? Yes. The 4 of them nodded. Wasn't this asking the obvious? As Feng Yuan's son-in-law, how could he not know them? Jin Yunchang said, give me your original identity token. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 took out their tokens and handed them to Jin Yunchang. Jin Yunchang glanced at them one by one, then waved his hand, and the 4 tokens shattered. Following closely. Then, he took out 4 black identity medallions from his Cosmos ring and branded their names on them. Then, He handed the medallions to Qin Feiyang and the other three. From now on, you are all inner sect disciples. You must abide by the rules of the inner sect. The rules of the inner sect are similar to those of the outer sect. The only difference is that without permission, no one is allowed to enter the Crimson Gold Divine Tower and the Purple Gold Divine Tower. Jin Yunchang said. Disciple understands. The four of them nodded. Jin Yunchang said, as for your cave residences, I have already arranged them. They will be in the first and fourth cave residences of the first sacred mountain. First sacred peak. Hui raised his eyebrows imperceptibly and said, Elder Jin, with the cultivation of the four of us, it doesn't seem suitable for us to go to the first sacred peak. Although your cultivation bases aren't that great, you are still influential figures of our Nine Heavens Palace. Naturally, we will give you a good cave abode. Of course, this is also something that my father-in-law personally instructed me to arrange. Consider it a bit of compensation and apology to you all. Jin Yunchang said. Hui smiled and said, then thank you, Elder, and Hall Master Feng Yuan. No problem. You all can go. Jin Yunchang waved his hand and said. Disciple will take his leave. Hui bowed and said. He gave a look to Qin Feiyang and the other two before turning around and quickly leaving the assignment hall. After the four of them left, Jin Yunchang's eyes flashed with a cold smile as he took out the image crystal. Buzz. Soon. Feng Yuan's shadow appeared. Greetings, father-in-law. Jin Yunchang said respectfully. What's the matter? Feng Yuan asked. Jin Yunchang said, Jiang Haotian and the other three have already entered the inner sect. Feng Yuan's eyes were filled with killing intent as he asked, what's the arrangement? Jin Yunchang said respectfully, according to your instructions, they will be arranged to the first sacred peak. Well done. Feng Yuan nodded. In addition, I also found out that Jiang Haotian's cultivation is already a perfect war god. Jin Yunchang said in surprise. What? Perfect war god? Are you sure you didn't see wrongly? Feng Yuan was surprised. No. Jin Yunchang shook his head. How is this possible? Before entering the Nine Heavens Palace, he was only a low-level war god. It seems like only a month has passed. Although he got a lot of soul stones from us, how could he break through 2 small realms in a month? Feng Yuan was in disbelief. Jin Yunchang shook his head and said, this is also what I can't figure out. Feng Yuan said, from now on, you have to keep an eye on him for this old man, understand? Understood. Jin Yunchang nodded. After hesitating for a moment, he said respectfully, father-in-law, there's a small matter that I would like to ask for your help. Feng Yuan smiled and said, we're all family. It's too polite to say that you're helping. Speak. Do you still remember Jin Zhou? Jin Yunchang said. Jin Zhou, Feng Yuan frowned, thought for a while, and said, are you talking about your cousin's son? Yes. This child also wants to enter the resource hall this time. Jin Yunchang said. He's your nephew, so he's also our family. This is a good thing. What's his cultivation? Feng Yuan asked. Perfect war god. Jin Yunchang said. The minimum requirement for the resource hall to recruit people is a perfect war god. His cultivation is enough. How about this? Just let him register at the resource hall. At that time, this old man will arrange for him to successfully pass the assessment. Feng Yuan said. Thank you, father-in-law. Jin Yunchang said gratefully. Feng Yuan smiled, but for some reason, he suddenly frowned. What's wrong? Jin Yunchang was suspicious. Feng Yuan said, do you think this Jiang Haotian will also come to the resource hall to register? Him? Impossible. You're the hall master of the resource hall. Isn't he courting death by going to the resource hall? I think he can't be so stupid. Jin Yunchang said. Not necessarily. What if he wants to get close to this old man? It seems that we have to be careful about this matter. Feng Yuan said. Father-in-law, he's just a mere disciple. Aren't you being too cautious? Jin Yunchang frowned. A mere disciple. Feng Yuan raised his eyebrows and said angrily, you dare to say this? Have you forgotten how Wenhai fell into his hands? Jin Yunchang's expression changed and hurriedly said, I know my mistake. Please forgive me, father-in-law. Feng Yuan said in a deep voice, you can't be careless with this kid. Yes, yes, yes. Jin Yunchang nodded repeatedly. Looking at Feng Yuan's gloomy face, he couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Suddenly, his eyes turned and looked at Feng Yuan. How about this? You increase the difficulty of the registration. What do you mean? Feng Yuan was slightly stunned and looked at Jin Yunchang suspiciously. In the past, wasn't the minimum requirement for the resource hall to recruit perfect war god? Then now, we might as well raise the minimum requirement to perfect war god. This way, even if Jiang Haotian has heaven-defying abilities, he won't be able to break through to perfect war god before the registration. Jin Yunchang said. Sure. Feng Yuan's eyes lit up and laughed, let's do it this way. Isn't this Jiang Haotian and the others? Qin Feiyang and the other three were quickly discovered on their way to the first sacred peak. Junior brother Jiang, nice to meet you. You've already been approved to enter the inner sect? Actually, it's only right. You were originally first place in the assessment. If it wasn't for Feng Wenhai framing you behind your backs, you would have been inner sect disciples long ago. The most infuriating thing is that the reward for first place has also been cancelled. I really pity you. Many people took the initiative to greet them. Qin Feiyang also smiled and replied to them one by one. Brother, your popularity now is no less than Feng Zihan's. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Don't make fun of me. Didn't you hear what they said? They're completely sympathizing with me. That's not right. Not only are they sympathizing with me, they're also sympathizing with you guys. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at Hui Yi and transmitted his voice. Brother Hua, when you heard the name, First Sacred Peak, your reaction seemed a little abnormal. We noticed it too. Fire Lotus and Qin Rushwang nodded. Hui Yi looked at the three and sighed. In addition to the Sword Peaks, the Crimson Gold Divine Tower, and the Purple Gold Divine Tower, there is another place, which is the 10 Sacred Peaks. 10 Sacred Peaks. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and suspiciously looked at Hui Yi. The 10 Sacred Peaks are above the Sword Peaks. It is said that under each sacred peak, there is a level 5 spirit vein. Not only can the spirit vein give birth to spirit stones, the energy it emits is also of great help in condensing divine sense. Therefore, cultivating in the sacred peaks is twice the result with half the effort compared to the sword peaks. Hui Yi said. This is a good thing. Fire Lotus said. Yes. This Feng Yuan really has a conscience. He actually gave us such a good place. Qin Rushwang also laughed. But Qin Feiyang did not speak. He lowered his head and pondered. Good thing? Hui Yi was stunned and shook his head, not necessarily. What do you mean? Qin Rushwang and Fire Lotus were puzzled. The disciples of the 10 sacred peaks are all perfect Sir Gods. Their strength is extremely terrifying. Moreover, they are all candidates for the heaven role. Hui Yi said. So strong? Fire Lotus was stunned and then said, but, does this have anything to do with us? Of course it does. These people are all geniuses. Do you think they will allow war god level disciples like us to enter the sacred peaks? Moreover, the cave residences that Feng Yuan has arranged for us are cave residences number 1 and 4 in the first sacred peak. The first sacred peak is the strongest among the 10 sacred peaks. And the people in cave residences number 1 to 4 are basically terrifying existences that can shake the heaven roll disciples. Now, we have taken over their cave residences. Will they be convinced? Of course they won't. I bet that when we step into the first sacred peak later, there will be people coming to find trouble with us. Hui sighed and was worried. So, Feng Yuan seems to be helping us, but he is actually harming us? Fire Lotus frowned. Yes. His goal is very simple. He wants us to become the public enemy of the 10 Sacred Peaks disciples. Hui said. Even now, he is still scheming against us. It seems that the previous lesson was not enough. Fire Lotus snorted coldly, her eyes full of anger. Chapter 2049. Qin Rishuang turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "A perfect Sir God is not someone we can fight against now. We have to think of a way in advance." Yes, Brother Jiang. We can't take this lightly. If we don't solve it immediately, there will be endless trouble later. Hui also looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and his eyes flickered. After a while, Hui and the other two stopped at the same time and scanned the void in front of them. Their pupils contracted tightly. Qin Feiyang was so engrossed in his thoughts that he did not notice that Hui and the other two had stopped and continued to walk forward. Brother, Fire Lotus saw this and quickly pulled Qin Feiyang back. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at Fire Lotus suspiciously. What's wrong? What are you thinking so deeply about? Qin Rishuang frowned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I'm just thinking about how to solve your problems. Qin Rishuang stared at the void in front of them and said in a deep voice, There's no need to think about it. Trouble has already come. Already? Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked up. His face suddenly changed. There was a vast plain in front of them. On the plain, there were 10 towering peaks of about 10,000 feet. On the top of each peak, there was a tall stone tablet with a few bold words engraved on it. First Sacred Peak. Second Sacred Peak. Third Sacred Peak. Fourth Sacred Peak, that's right. This was where the 10 sacred peaks were located. It was only a few dozen miles away from the Crimson Gold Divine Tower and the Purple Gold Divine Tower. At this moment, whether it was the plain below, the top of the 10 sacred peaks, or in front of each cave residence, there were people there. Without exception, they were all looking up at Qin Feiyang and the other three. They are indeed very strong. Qin Feiyang muttered. There were men and women among these people. Everyone's aura was unfathomable. Everyone's temperament was also outstanding. Brother Jiang, why don't we go to Shengguan Fenglan? Hui transmitted his voice. This battle formation was too terrifying. He didn't even dare to move. It's useless to look for her. At most, it can only intimidate these people temporarily. Qin Feiyang thought. Indeed, treating the symptoms but not the root cause. Qin Rishuang nodded. Then what should we do? Looking at their formation, it won't be easy for them to settle this matter today. Hui was quite anxious. No rush, no rush. Qin Feiyang smiled inwardly and whispered a few words into Fire Lotus's ear. Fire Lotus's eyes lit up when she heard this. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Come back quickly. All right. Fire Lotus nodded, then turned around and flew away like a bolt of lightning. Hui looked at Fire Lotus's back and suspiciously asked, What did you tell Fire Lotus to do? You'll know soon enough. Qin Feiyang smiled mysteriously. Hello, junior brother Jiang. In the blink of an eye, a young man in white stepped forward and cupped his hands at Qin Feiyang, looking gentle and polite. Hello, senior brother. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands in return. The young man in white smiled and said, Last time on the battlefield, junior brother Jiang, Shirtai, and Feng Wenhai became famous in one battle. I admire you. You're too kind. I'm still far from being comparable to you senior brothers and sisters. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hands. Junior brother Jiang is really humble. But junior brother Jiang, did you come to the wrong place? This is the 10 Great Saint Peaks, not the Sword Peak. The young man in white said. They're here. Qin Rushwang and Huiyi's hearts skipped a beat. They were just being polite before, and now they were getting to the point. Is there? Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking about it, he looked at the young man in white and said, It seems that Elder Jin arranged for us to come to the Saint Peak. The young man in white asked, Then, junior brother Jiang, do you know what kind of place the Saint Peak is? I've heard a little about it. Everyone here is a candidate for the heaven role. They're all famous. It's our honor to be able to live under the same roof with everyone and cultivate together. Qin Feiyang smiled. I didn't expect junior brother Jiang to be such a flatterer. It's no wonder that he could make such a name for himself in Nine Heavens Palace in just over a month. Even we heaven role candidates are ashamed of ourselves. Several young men and women laughed. However, their words were full of ridicule. Qin Feiyang naturally understood, so he didn't get angry. He smiled and said, Senior brothers and sisters, you all have honorable statuses and powerful strength. We have just arrived here, so of course we have to curry favor with you. That's good to hear. Junior Marshal brother Jiang, you didn't flatter Jin Yunchang like this in exchange for cave abodes number 1 and number 4, right? Why don't you teach us? Although our strength is indeed very strong, compared to junior Marshal brother Jiang's bootlicking skills, we really can't compare. As soon as those words were said, everyone here roared with laughter. The sarcasm on their faces was also undisguised. You're getting more and more outrageous. Looking at those ugly faces, Qin Rushwang and Huiyi's faces darkened. However, Qin Feiyang's expression did not change. He smiled and said, You flatter me. If you really want to learn how to flatter, I will teach you with all my strength. Teach with all your strength? Can't you tell that we're mocking him? It seems that this person is just a flatterer. Everyone laughed non-stop. The young man in white also smiled brightly and said, Senior brother Jiang, do you like our welcome ceremony? Senior brothers and sisters, thank you for your thoughtfulness. The few of us really like it. Qin Feiyang nodded. The young man in white said, It's good that you like it. We were afraid that we would make you angry. After all, your reputation is rising now, and we can't afford to offend you. You're too kind. Compared to all of you, I'm still far behind. Qin Feiyang shook his head again and again. Junior brother Jiang is humble. We have already prepared the first cave dwelling for junior brother Jiang. Now, we invite junior brother Jiang to stay. Of course, there is also junior brother Huiyi and junior sister Jiang Rushwang. The young man in white said with a smile and retreated to the side. The others also retreated one after another, making a path. Huiyi hurriedly transmitted his voice, Brother Jiang, they are obviously provoking us. You can't go. Why not? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and walked toward the first cave dwelling step by step. Huiyi and Jiang Rushwang looked at each other and could only helplessly follow. Soon, Qin Feiyang and the other two walked past the young man in white. You still dare to go? The young man in white raised his eyebrows. The others looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and the smiles on their faces gradually disappeared and were replaced by wisps of cold light. However, Qin Feiyang turned a blind eye to this. His face was also calm. However, Qin Rushwang and Huiyi were very nervous at this moment. They were deeply afraid that the people on both sides would suddenly attack them. At the same time, they also admired Qin Feiyang's courage. In the face of so many perfect Sir Gods, he could still act as if nothing had happened. What a terrifying state of mind. Swoosh! Just as they were about to enter the first sacred peak, the young man in white suddenly took a step forward and stood in front of the three of them. Qin Feiyang was stunned and stopped in his tracks. He looked at the young man in white and said with a smile, Senior brother, is there a welcoming ceremony? The young man in white was stunned. Was this person stupid? Didn't he see that everyone's faces had changed? However, in the next moment, he felt that something was wrong. Because he vaguely caught a trace of mockery in Qin Feiyang's smile. This person had been pretending to be stupid all this time. What an interesting scene. I thought that the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks should be a group of great people, but I didn't expect them to be a group of clowns. Qin Feiyang chuckled and no longer concealed it. There was no need to. Because calculating the time, Fire Lotus should be back. What? Did he say that we're clowns? Is he borrowing courage from the heavens? He was obviously playing with us before. Pretending to be stupid? Preposterous. How dare he play with the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks like monkeys? The group of people was immediately furious. Monkeys? Are you worthy? Qin Feiyang smiled disdainfully. The young man in white's eyes turned cold and he said gloomily, Jiang Haotian, I dare you to say that again. The others also looked at him angrily. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips and looked around. Finally, he looked at the young man in white and said with a smile, Senior brother, do you know? The others are a bit like monkeys, but you are especially like a dog because you bark the loudest. How dare you? The young man in white was enraged and his aura surged. Senior brother, have you forgotten the rules of the 9 Heavens Palace? Disciples are not allowed to fight in private? Or are you saying that as a disciple of the sacred peaks, you can ignore this rule? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The young man in white clenched his fists. This was obviously a trap. If he dared to say that the disciples of the sacred peaks could ignore these rules, then the people of the disciplinary hall would come knocking on his door. How sinister. He held back his anger and stared at Qin Feiyang. He said in a deep voice, I challenge you now. Go to the battlefield immediately. Challenge? Senior brother, is there something wrong with your brain? A perfect Sir God actually issued a challenge to a perfect war god? Amazing, really amazing. Such shameless behavior. I'm about to prostrate myself in admiration. Qin Feiyang gave him a thumbs up and said with admiration. Hearing this, the young man in white's face turned green and red. However, no one stood up for the young man in white. They all fell silent. A few simple words were enough to humiliate the other party. This person was indeed difficult to deal with. Looks like we've underestimated him. 4 young men stood at the peak of the first sacred peak. They were tall and had good looks. The aura they exuded was more outstanding than the others. The one who spoke was one of them. He was wearing a golden robe and a golden crown. He was about 1.8 meters tall and had his hands behind his back. He looked like a king who had descended and exuded a terrifying aura. So what? He's just a perfect war god. Dealing with him is easier than killing a dog or a chicken. That's right. Since he dared to snatch our cave abodes, he must pay the price. The other 3 sneered. These 4 people were the original owners of cave abodes number 1 and number 4. They were second only to the disciples on the heaven roll and had high prestige among the disciples of the 9 Heavens Palace. The disciples of the 10 sacred peaks basically followed their lead. Chapter 2050. The golden-robed man glanced at Qin Feiyang, then at the other 3, asking, what kind of price do you want him to pay? Jin Yunchang has already given our cave dwelling to them, they won't be able to get it back. And facing our challenge, they won't dare to accept it. We don't dare to kill them. If that's the case, then let them crawl into the cave dwelling like dogs, that's enough to vent our anger. The other 3 sneered. All right. Let's do that. The golden-robed man nodded and transmitted his voice to the white-robed man, don't act on impulse, if you really attack, you'll be severely punished by the enforcement hall. The white-robed man shuddered and turned to look at the golden-robed man. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang also looked over. When he saw the golden-robed man and the other 3, a sharp light flashed across his eyes. Although he didn't know the identities of the four, it was obvious that the white-robed man was ordered by them. Seeing Qin Feiyang looking at them, the golden-robed man and the other three also looked at Qin Feiyang. The moment their gazes met, invisible sparks seemed to fly. The golden-robed man transmitted his voice, "Tell everyone to release their auras and let them crawl into the cave dwelling." "Crawl into the cave dwelling," the white-robed man muttered, a cold light flashed in his eyes. If they crawled into the cave dwelling, even if they successfully moved into cave dwelling number 1 and 4, they would become a joke in Nine Heavens Palace. Boom! He made a prompt decision. The white-robed man released a terrifying aura, rushing towards Qin Feiyang and the other two. Qin Rushwang turned pale with fright, saying inwardly, "Feiyang, quickly go to the Black Tortoise world." "No need." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. He didn't feel any killing intent from this aura, so it shouldn't be killing him. Moreover, this person wouldn't dare to violate Nine Heavens Palace's rules. As expected. When the white-robed man's aura surged, there wasn't any killing intent, as if he just wanted to force them to kneel. The white-robed man had a contemptuous attitude at first, but it slowly disappeared, replaced by a trace of disbelief. He realized. Under his pressure, Qin Feiyang and the other two did not show any signs of prostrating themselves. It was as if his pressure had no effect on the three of them. What was going on? The others, including the golden-robed man and the other three, were also shocked. How could two perfect battle gods and a great success battle god withstand the suppression of a perfect divine lord? How was this possible? Could it be that they were hiding their cultivation? "Everyone, attack!" Suddenly, the golden-robed man's voice resounded in the minds of all the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks. Boom! Immediately, streams of auras erupted like volcanoes. Every Saint Peak disciple present unleashed their aura, surging towards Qin Feiyang and the other two like an avalanche. "What are you trying to do?" Qin Rushwang said angrily. "Didn't you want cave abodes number 1 to 4? Now, we will fulfill your wish. As long as you crawl into the cave abodes now, these 4 caves will belong to you in the future." The white-clothed young man grinned maliciously. His attitude was completely different from his previous gentle and courteous attitude. The cave abodes were arranged by Elder Jean. "If you have any objections, go look for him. What's the use of looking for us? It seems that you only dare to intimidate us with your connections." Qin Rushwang's face was full of ridicule. "How dare you be so arrogant?" The white-clothed young man laughed angrily and roared, "Everyone, don't hold back. Make them kneel." Boom! Suddenly, everyone's aura soared several times in an instant. Even Qin Feiyang's face was pale. The blood in his body was surging and a bloody taste rushed to his throat. "Feiyang, hide for a while. If this goes on, you will bleed," Qin Rushwang said anxiously. Qin Feiyang was silent. He raised his head and looked at the golden-robed man and the other three on the peak. His eyes were filled with a murderous glint. As for the other 4, they were gloating. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and the other 3 did not kneel, the white-clothed young man became angry and shouted, "Let's see how long you can hold on. It's so lively." But before his voice died away, loud laughter rolled in. "This voice, it's lunatic." The golden-robed man and the other three's faces changed. The white-clothed young man and the other disciples of Saint Peak also changed their expressions. Why was lunatic here? But at the same time, Qin Feiyang's face showed a trace of a smile. Qin Rushwang and Hui Yi were puzzled. Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, 2 figures descended beside Qin Feiyang and the other 2. It was Lunatic and Fire Lotus. It's Jiang Haotian's sister, Fire Lotus Jiang. Could it be that the madman is a helper they found? Everyone was surprised. So many people's aura, what are they doing? Lunatic glanced at the white-clothed young man and the others. No one dared to say a word. They immediately retracted their aura. Qin Feiyang also quickly suppressed the surging blood in his body. He cupped his hands and said apologetically, "Senior brother, I'm sorry for making you come here. It's no big deal. Anyway, I just wanted to take a look around the inner sect." Lunatic waved his hand. It really is their helper. But why is Lunatic so close to Jiang Haotian? Everyone was in disbelief. The golden-clothed man and the other three couldn't help but frown. This helper had quite a bit of weight. Lunatic glanced at the crowd and finally looked at the white-clothed young man. He smiled and said, "You were the one who shouted the loudest just now." I, the white-clothed young man panicked. Lunatic rubbed his chin and looked at the white-clothed young man. Why didn't I know that there was someone more arrogant than me in Empyrean Palace? The white-clothed young man's face turned pale. He hurriedly said, "Senior brother Lunatic, this is a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? Lunatic grinned and landed in front of the white-clothed young man. He raised his hand and slapped the white-clothed young man's face. "Paw!" With a loud slap, the white-clothed young man flew out on the spot with blood gushing out of his mouth. Lunatic looked at his arm and hurriedly ran up. "I'm sorry, I didn't intend to hit you just now. This is also a misunderstanding, don't be angry." No. I'm not angry. The white-clothed young man waved his hand and hurriedly retreated as if he had seen a demon king. "You're really not angry?" Lunatic asked. No. This is just a misunderstanding, why would I be angry? The white-clothed young man said with a flattering smile. "You're not angry, but I'm very angry right now." Lunatic's expression changed instantly. He took a step forward and grabbed the white-clothed young man and punched. Ah! With a scream, the white-clothed young man's head exploded like a watermelon. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. He died on the spot. What? He killed him directly? This scene caused Qin Feiyang and the others to be dumbfounded. In fact, they had asked Lunatic to come over purely to teach these people a lesson. It was fine as long as they didn't cause trouble for them in the future. But they never expected that he would kill them on the spot. The rules of Empyrean Palace forbade fighting, let alone killing in public. This fellow was indeed an out-and-out lunatic. The disciples of the 10 sacred peaks were also dumbfounded, and an indescribable fear welled up in their hearts. This was especially true for the golden-robed man and the other three. Their faces were ashen and their bodies were trembling. They were terrified to the extreme. However, Lunatic was fearless. He looked at the white-clothed young man's corpse and shook his head. "Isn't it good to be alive? You're just courting death." Then he loosened his grip and the white-clothed young man's corpse fell to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. Lunatic killed someone again? Heavens, who is so unlucky to provoke such a lawless person? The inner disciples heard the commotion and rushed over. Seeing this scene, they began to discuss. Killed someone again? What do you mean? That is to say, this isn't the first time he killed someone in public? Qin Feiyang and the other three looked at each other. It seemed that they had underestimated Lunatic's position in Empyrean Palace. After killing someone in public, who would believe that he was still alive and kicking in Empyrean Palace? Suddenly, Madman then looked at the golden-robed man and the other three. The four shuddered and quickly turned to flee. Lunatic didn't move. He crossed his arms and mocked, "If you want to die, then run." The four trembled and stopped. They slowly turned to look at Lunatic. They were about to cry. "Come over here obediently." Lunatic grinned. The four of them immediately dove down. Like 4 rubber balls, they really rolled all the way to the madman. Lunatic said, "Speak, what do you want?" The 4 hurriedly said, "Senior brother Lunatic, this matter has nothing to do with us. We swear, what I hate the most is being treated as a fool." The madman's eyes turned cold as he kicked the 4 of them. We don't dare. Senior brother Lunatic, we were wrong. We were blind, we didn't know they were under your protection. Give us a chance, we won't dare to do it again. The four knelt in the air and begged. Lunatic said, Jiang Haotian has a saying that I like the most. If you do something wrong, you have to pay the price. Say it, say it. We'll do whatever you tell us to do. The four hurriedly said. Madman said, take off all your clothes and run around the inner sect and outer sect naked for me. This, the four's faces turned pale. Strip naked? Run naked? How could they face others in the future? Lunatic raised the corner of his mouth and chuckled. Looks like I have to do it. No, no, no. Senior brother Madman, we're all reputable figures. You want us to run around naked? What kind of scandal is this? How about this, we apologize to Jiang Haotian and the others and compensate them. The four said bitterly. You know that you are people with status? Then why did you bully a few new disciples? Lunatic laughed angrily. We don't dare. We really don't dare, senior brother Lunatic, please, give us a chance. The four kept kowtowing and begging, their hearts filled with regret. Why were they so unlucky to provoke this fierce person? They had never heard of this before. Was Jiang Haotian one of Lunatic's people? Chapter 2051. Madman frowned and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, asking, Jiang Haotian, what do you think we should do? Once again, he gave the choice to Qin Feiyang. Junior brother Jiang, we apologize to you, we're sorry, give us face, we'll do anything, as long as you don't make us run naked. The golden-robed man and the other three hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang and begged. Qin Feiyang glanced at the four of them, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, he smiled and asked, you guys don't like running naked? The four of them nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled, I like to watch others do things I don't like. It was obvious that these four people were vengeful people. Even if he didn't let them run naked now, they would think of ways to take revenge on him in the future. So it was better to collect some interest in advance. Hearing this, the four of them turned pale. Didn't you hear? Go! Madman shouted. The four of them stood up in fear, their faces flushed red as they slowly took off their clothes. Hurry up! Madman raised his eyebrows. The four of them shuddered and hastened their movements. They quickly took off their clothes, leaving only a pair of shorts. Madman looked at the shorts of the four and frowned. Don't you know the meaning of running naked? I know. The four of them nodded. Their hands grabbed their shorts, but they didn't have the courage to take it off. Because once they took it off, they would become a joke in the Nine Heavens Palace. Madman, what are you doing? Suddenly, an angry roar sounded. Following closely, a middle-aged man descended from the sky, his face full of anger. It was really Jin Yunchang. Elder Jin, you have to make a decision for us. This madman is too much. Not only did he kill us in public, but he also made us run naked. Seeing the arrival of Jin Yunchang, the golden-robed man and the other three immediately ran to Jin Yunchang's side as if they had seen their savior. Jin Yunchang glanced at the four of them and then lowered his head to look at the corpse of the white-robed young man. He was instantly enraged. He glared at Madman and shouted, do you have any regard for the rules of my Nine Heavens Palace? We're in big trouble now. I'm afraid we'll alarm the big shots above. Hui transmitted his voice. Let's wait and see. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Madman was taken aback. He looked up at Jin Yunchang with disdain. You want to talk about rules with me? How dare you? Jin Yunchang was furious. Whoosh! The madman took a step forward and instantly closed in on Jin Yunchang. He grinned and said, what did you say? I dare you to say it again. Facing the powerful madman, Jin Yunchang revealed a look of fear. Don't think that you have the right to show off in front of me just because you have Feng Yuan as your backer. Let me tell you, if you provoke me, let alone a gigolo like you, even if it's Feng Yuan, I won't let him off easily." Madman sneered. Gigolo? Qin Feiyang and the other three looked at each other. This guy really didn't give them any face at all. The inner sect disciples at the back also looked at each other when they heard Madman's words. In fact, they all knew that Jin Yunchang only married Feng Yuan's daughter because he fancied Feng Yuan's power. But for this matter, they didn't dare to say it out loud like Madman. After all, Jin Yunchang was an inner sect elder and they didn't dare to offend him. Looking at Jin Yunchang, he stared at Madman with his fists clenched. His face was green and red. "What? Did I say something wrong? If you didn't hook up with Feng Yuan, would you be able to sit on the position of an inner sect elder? But an inner sect elder is actually the same as an outer sect elder. They're just gatekeepers. What's there to be arrogant about?" Madman had a look of disdain. "Preposterous, preposterous." Jin Yunchang flew into a rage. He was about to go crazy. Who was the one being arrogant now? Madman couldn't be bothered with him. He looked at the four and shouted, "I'll say it again. Go run naked for me." Elder Jin, the four of them looked at Jin Yunchang helplessly. Jin Yunchang suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice, "Madman, if you continue to mess around, I'll report it to the Grand Elder." "Go. Do you think I'm afraid of an old man?" Madman said contemptuously. "He doesn't even put the Grand Elder in his eyes. Isn't he too arrogant?" Qin Feiyang and the other three were speechless. This guy was indeed a madman. He's rebelling. "Grand Elder, are you going to take care of such a disciple?" Jin Yunchang roared again and again. Madman turned a deaf ear to him. He looked at the four and shouted, "Do you want to run naked or not?" "We, Elder Jin," the four of them were desperate to the extreme. "It seems that I've been away from the inner sect for too long. My words no longer have any effect." Madman's eyes turned cold. He waved his hand and a golden light burst out. Boom! A destructive aura suddenly burst out from it. Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted. The aura of this golden light was too familiar. It was the golden light that had shattered the blood fleeting several times. One must know. The blood fleeting was formed by the kill tactic. To be able to shatter the blood fleeting, one could imagine how terrifying this golden light was. Seeing Madman make a move, the faces of the four changed drastically. They hurriedly shouted, "We'll run naked, we'll run naked." Even Jin Yunchang instinctively retreated when he saw the golden light. "It's too late." Madman sneered. The golden light surged and drowned the four of them. "Ah!" Screams immediately resounded in all directions. When the golden light dissipated, the four of them had already lost their lives and fell to the ground below. This scene made this place fall into a dead silence. No one would have thought that Madman would actually kill the four of them. One must know that these four people were the strongest existences below the heaven list. Even the big shots had to give them some face. But now, he actually killed them without any hesitation. It was too terrifying. Qin Feiyang and the other three were especially shocked. First, he killed the youth in white in public. Now, in front of Jin Yunchang, he killed the four strongest people below the heaven list. What else was there that this madman didn't dare to do? Looking at the madman at this moment, his aura was extremely terrifying. He was like a king, causing people to tremble in fear. "You really won't cry until you enter the coffin." The corners of his mouth raised slightly. The golden light retracted back into his body like a tide. He then lowered his head and swept his gaze across the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks. At this moment, no one dared to look him in the eye. Indeed, Madman had left the inner sect for too long, so much so that they had forgotten this madman's methods. This was a devil that couldn't be provoked. Madman sneered and said, "Who else is unhappy? Quickly stand out and let this father have a look." No one from the 10 sacred peaks said a word. Even Jin Yunchang's face was full of panic. "Madman, have you had enough?" Suddenly, an angry shout sounded. A woman in a purple dress descended from the sky. It was Shangguan Fenglan. At this moment, her face was covered with frost. "Greetings to the Lord of the Temple." For a time, all the disciples below bowed one after another. Shangguan Fenglan. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. "Lord of the Temple, you came at the right time. This madman is too presumptuous. Not only did he humiliate me, an inner sect elder, but he also openly killed 5 sacred peak disciples." Jin Yunchang hurriedly flew up and said angrily. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Madman and asked, "Is what he said the truth?" "Yes." Madman nodded. "Why did you do this?" Shangguan Fenglan said in a deep voice. "Ask him." Madman picked his ear and glanced at Jin Yunchang. "Ask me?" Jin Yunchang was taken aback. Jin Yunchang, a straightforward person, doesn't do underhanded things. Jiang Haotian and the others just entered the 9th Heaven Palace. What qualifications do they have to enter the sacred peak? Madman sneered. N. Shangguan Fenglan raised her eyebrows, swept a glance at Qin Feiyang and the others, and turned to look at Jin Yunchang. "You arranged for them to come to the sacred peak?" Jin Yunchang's expression became flustered again. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Elder Jin, I'm afraid you have to give me an explanation for this matter. Lord of the Temple, it's like this. I saw that they were talented and didn't want to waste such good talents, so I arranged for them to come to the sacred peak, but I didn't expect to cause such a big commotion. I didn't consider this matter thoroughly. I'm willing to accept the punishment." Jin Yunchang's eyes turned as he bowed. "Is that all?" Shangguan Fenglan said. "That's all." Jin Yunchang nodded. "You're quite good at pretending. But ask the people here, who doesn't know that you're abusing your power to avenge a private grudge? Using the people of the 10 sacred peaks to deal with Jiang Haotian and the others to avenge Feng Wenhai, what a brilliant method." Madman mocked. "Nonsense." Jin Yunchang said angrily. "Nonsense? Then, as you said, Jiang Haotian and the others are all talents and need to be nurtured well, but there's no need to arrange for them to go to the 1st and 4th cave abodes of the 1st sacred peak. Isn't this clearly making them a target for everyone?" Madman said. Madman, don't slander me." Jin Yunchang shouted angrily. Madman said indifferently, "Justice is in the hearts of the people. Whether I'm slandering you or not, everyone knows in their hearts." Now that Shangguan Fenglan was here, Madman's attitude was also restrained. "Lord of the Temple, I really didn't think of wrongly accusing them. I just wanted to nurture them well." Jin Yunchang looked at Shangguan Fenglan and said, "I don't know whether I'm wrongly accused or not. But you do have an unshirkable responsibility for this matter. From now on, you're stripped of your position as an inner sect elder. Go home and enjoy your old age." Shangguan Fenglan said indifferently. "What? Lord of the Temple, you?" Jin Yunchang was dumbfounded. Stripped of his position as an inner sect elder? Go home and enjoy his old age? Wasn't this equivalent to driving him out of the 9 Heavens Palace? What? Do you have an objection to my ruling? Shangguan Fenglan said. "I don't dare." Jin Yunchang hurriedly waved his hand and said, "But I just made an unintentional mistake." Without waiting for Jin Yunchang to finish, Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand and said coldly, "Since you've done something wrong, then you have to accept the punishment. If you don't accept it, you can go to the Great Elder and reason with him." Jin Yunchang suddenly collapsed powerlessly. Go to the Great Elder? He was just a small inner sect elder. Would the Great Elder care about him? As Madman said, the inner sect elders and outer sect elders were actually gatekeepers and did odd jobs. They didn't have any status at all. Chapter 2052. Suddenly, an old voice sounded. "Shangguan Fenglan, what do you mean? The voice fell. A red-haired old man descended in front of Shangguan Fenglan out of thin air. Feng Yuan. Hui Yi's pupils shrank. This matter was indeed getting bigger and bigger. Interesting. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Interesting? Hui Yi was slightly taken aback and speechlessly said, Brother Jiang, you want to see the world in chaos. Chaos is good. Qin Feiyang laughed. At the same time, seeing Feng Yuan arrive, Jin Yunchang hurriedly ran over and begged, Father-in-law, save me. Don't worry, leave it to this old man. Feng Yuan secretly said, looked up at Shangguan Fenglan, frowned and said, what do you mean by this? Shangguan Fenglan turned to look at Feng Yuan and said indifferently, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. The one who broke the rules now is a lunatic. Instead of punishing him, you want to expel Jin Yunchang from the Nine Heavens Palace. As the hall master of the Law Enforcement Hall, aren't you being unfair? Feng Yuan said. A lunatic naturally has to be punished for killing people. But in the end, this matter is still Jin Yunchang's fault. If he didn't arrange Jiang Haotian and the other three to the first sacred peak, would this have happened? He can't even arrange a cave residence for a disciple. What qualifications does he have to continue to sit in the position of an inner elder? Shangguan Fenglan said. Feng Yuan said, even so, there's no need to expel him from the Nine Heavens Palace. Did I say that I would expel him from the Nine Heavens Palace? I just let him go home to recuperate. Shangguan Fenglan said. What's the difference between this and being expelled from the Nine Heavens Palace? Feng Yuan said angrily. Shangguan Fenglan said, of course there's a difference. At least in the future, he will still be a member of the Nine Heavens Palace. Feng Yuan clenched his hands and said gloomily, Shangguan Fenglan, don't go too far. I am the hall master of the Law Enforcement Hall, of course I have to enforce the law impartially. Otherwise, how can I convince the public? If Hall Master Feng Yuan has any objections, you can go to the Great Elder personally. If Great Elder also opposes this palace's actions, this palace will naturally be lenient. That's all I have to say. Hall Master Feng Yuan, do as you see fit. After Shangguan Fenglan finished speaking, she looked at the madman and said, follow me to the Law Enforcement Hall. It's been a long time since I've been to the Law Enforcement Hall. Madman grinned and transmitted his voice, Qin Feiyang, I promised to do something for you, and I've done it. Don't bother me again. After saying that, he followed Shangguan Fenglan and left. Many thanks, senior brother. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman's back and secretly said. Lunatic had helped him a lot this time. Not only had he intimidated the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks, he had also chased away Jin Yunchang, saving him a lot of trouble in the future. Jin Yunchang watched Shangguan Fenglan leave. Then, he looked at Feng Yuan and said, Father-in-law, I did everything according to your instructions. Now, enough. Feng Yuan secretly shouted and said gloomily, bitch, since you don't give this old man face, don't blame this old man for being ruthless. You go back to the deacon hall first. This old man will look for Great Elder. Okay. Jin Yunchang nodded. Feng Yuan took a step forward and disappeared without a trace. Jin Yunchang glanced at the disciples below and then flew back to the deacon hall with his tail between his legs. Fire Lotus said in surprise, why do I feel that this matter has nothing to do with us? It's all Madman's doing. Although Madman is lawless, he's a very righteous person. I hope Shangguan Fenglan won't punish him too much this time. Qin Feiyang sighed. Brother Jiang, I'm a little puzzled. Why did Madman help you like this? Hui Yi asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, the last time I sparred with him on Turtle King Island, I was lucky enough to beat him, so he promised to do something for me in the future. What? You actually beat him? Hui Yi was dumbfounded. It's not really a win. It's a little complicated. In short, we have to thank him properly this time. Qin Feiyang snickered. That's true. If there's a chance, let's invite him for a few drinks. Hua Yi nodded. Fire Lotus looked at the first St. Peak and frowned. Then should we go to the first St. Peak's cave residence or not? Feng Yuan and Jin Yunchang have already arranged it for us. Why don't we go? Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes, yes, yes. If we don't go, we won't be giving them face. Hua Yi nodded and smiled. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. This time, Feng Yuan had suffered a double loss. In fact, Feng Yuan's plan was also a clever move. He used the disciples of the St. Peaks to humiliate and suppress them. But Feng Yuan didn't expect that madman would appear. What was originally a good game of chess was completely disrupted. Qin Feiyang and the other three flew openly to the first and fourth cave residences. None of the disciples of the 10 great St. Peaks dared to jump out. On the contrary, there was even a hint of flattery. In fact, the world was like this. Especially in a place like the Nine Heavens Palace, bullying the weak and fearing the strong was the norm. Brother, which one of us will stay in the first cave residence? The four stood in the void in front of the first St. Peak and looked at the first cave residence. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. I'd better choose the fourth cave residence in a low-key manner. Hua Yi chuckled. He took a step forward and entered cave dwelling number 4. Low-key? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Not to mention the previous commotion, just the 4 of them being able to enter the first St. Peak was already a big event that was enough to shake the entire Nine Heavens Palace. Did they think that by choosing the 4th cave residence, they wouldn't attract the attention of others? Naive. Qin Feiyang stepped out and directly landed in front of the first cave residence. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus also followed beside him. Because the cave residence really didn't mean much to them. All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang frowned and turned his head to look at the crowd above the Sword Peak. Previously, there were many disciples gathered there to watch the commotion. But now, they were already dispersing. What's wrong? Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, "Just now, I felt a gaze filled with hatred. But when I turned around to look, that gaze disappeared again." Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus were surprised. Forget it. There should be many people in the Nine Heavens Palace who hate me now. As long as I'm careful, I'll be fine. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and led the 2 into the first cave residence. The moment they entered the cave residence, their eyes lit up. The cave residence was very big. Not only did it have an independent cultivation room, alchemy room, but it also had a lounge, living room, and washroom. The decorations were also very beautiful. Compared to their outer cave residence, it was like heaven and earth. And in this cave residence, they could clearly feel the aura of the soul stone. Qin Rushuang said, "Looks like Hua Yi didn't lie to us. There really is a vein of soul under the 10 great St. Peaks." Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang and giggled, "Qin Dage, this is an opportunity." Qin Feiyang was stunned. Fire Lotus, he already has his eyes on the vein of soul in the Nine Heavens Palace, and you're still encouraging him? Be careful, he really will do such a thing. Qin Rushuang was speechless. Fire Lotus giggled. Qin Feiyang glanced at the 2 and shook his head, "Don't worry, I'm not so stupid to touch the vein of soul here. One should know that the 10 great St. Peaks were all perfect Sir Gods. Once he took the vein of soul here, he would immediately become a turtle in a jar." Feng Yuan was worried about not having a chance to kill him. Qin Rushuang said, "Looks like you haven't lost your mind." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Was he such a greedy person? What do you think this lunatic's cultivation level is? He can even kill a perfect Sir God in an instant? Could it be that his cultivation level has already surpassed that of a Sir God? Fire Lotus asked curiously. We can't rule out this possibility. Of course, even people of the same level have differences in strength. In any case, I can't see through this lunatic's strength. Fortunately, he's not our enemy, or he would be more terrifying than Feng Yuan. Qin Feiyang sighed. Although Feng Yuan was stronger than the lunatic, at least he wouldn't dare to deal with him openly. But this lunatic was simply lawless. The rules of the Nine Heavens Palace were completely useless against him. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Qin Dage, do you want me to inquire about the 10 Great Saint Peaks?" "Sure, be careful," Qin Feiyang reminded. "Okay." Fire Lotus nodded, turned around, and walked out quickly. "Feiyang, did you notice that Fire Lotus seems to be a little different from before after her tribulation?" Qin Rushuang asked Qin Feiyang after watching Fire Lotus leave the cave abode. Qin Feiyang was taken aback, thought carefully, and nodded. "There are some changes. She's more daring than before, and more clingy." Qin Rushuang said, "Not only that, but she's also more mysterious than before." "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Didn't you notice that she often goes out alone, and she goes out for an entire day?" Qin Rushuang said. "It seems like that's the case." Qin Feiyang nodded, looked up at Qin Rushuang, and said, "Did she meet someone she likes in the Nine Heavens Palace and secretly go on a date?" "A date?" Qin Rushuang was stunned. "This girl, when she comes back, I'll have to talk to her. If she wants to go on a date, then go on a date. Why did she hide it from us?" Qin Feiyang said angrily. "You have a rich imagination." Qin Rushuang was speechless, and said, "But we should really ask her properly. I'm afraid that she's in trouble, and she doesn't want us to worry, so she's shouldering it alone." Qin Feiyang nodded. Qin Rushuang said, "You settle the matters outside by yourself. Send me to the castle. This time, I must break through to the perfect god of war. I really envy you. You can cultivate without any worries, unlike me. I'm busy all day, and I don't even know what I'm busy with." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Capable people do more work." Qin Rushuang smiled. "Don't flatter me. You're my elder, after all. An elder should take responsibility and have the demeanor of an elder. You can't let me shoulder everything." Qin Feiyang was dissatisfied. "You're young. If you don't shoulder it, who will? Besides, it's precisely because I'm your elder that you should do your job well. This will show that you're filial." Qin Rushuang smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang was speechless. She made it sound like he was very old. However, his seniority with Qin Rushuang did make him feel a little helpless. This ancestor was really powerful. He was already so old, but he still had a daughter. Did he not consider the feelings of the descendants? Chapter 2053. In the depths of Nine Heaven Palace. In a courtyard. The great elder was lying on an armchair, while Feng Yuan was standing beside him, pouring out his grievances. Throughout the entire process, the first elder narrowed his eyes and didn't say a word. When Feng Yuan finished, the first elder opened his eyes and said angrily, "This lunatic is too reckless. Immediately send a message to Shengguan Fenglan and tell her to bring the lunatic here." "Yes." Feng Yuan was overjoyed and immediately took out an image crystal. Because from the first elder's words, he was prepared to severely punish this lunatic. After receiving the message, Shengguan Fenglan quickly brought the lunatic to the courtyard. "Old man, long time no see." The lunatic didn't feel nervous at all as he swaggered into the courtyard and waved at the first elder with a smile. The first elder raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "Don't be so sloppy with this old man." The lunatic walked to the opposite side of the first elder and sat on the ground. "Speak, why did you call me here? What is it? Don't you know? Usually, when you mess around, this old man will turn a blind eye to it. But this time, you actually killed people on the Saint Peak? You killed the 4 people second only to the heaven-ranking disciples. ignoring the rules of 9 Heaven Palace and running amok. How do you think this old man should punish you? The first elder said angrily. Punishment? That's not right. The plot doesn't develop like this. According to the plot, you should reward me. The lunatic frowned. Feng Yuan said angrily, Lunatic, don't be unreasonable. Killing in public and still wanting to be rewarded? Was he daydreaming? The lunatic immediately glared at Feng Yuan and said, Shut up. This old man is talking to this old man. Who are you to interrupt? First elder, look at his attitude. Feng Yuan blew his beard and glared. Don't be angry, don't be angry. The first elder smiled and looked at the lunatic angrily. Feng Yuan is a hall master. Show this old man some respect. Yes. Hall master Feng Yuan, I'm sorry. The lunatic picked his nose and said indifferently. Looking at his casual attitude, Feng Yuan was so angry that his nose became crooked. How was this an apology? Madman, let's get back to the topic. You just said that I should reward you. I don't quite understand what you're saying. Can you explain it to me? The Grand Elder said. That Jin Yunchang is abusing his position to avenge private wrongs. Those disciples of the Saint Peak are even causing trouble. What kind of scandal is this? You're simply disregarding the rules of our 9 Heavens Palace. As a member of 9 Heavens Palace, I naturally cannot tolerate their arrogance. That's why I killed the leaders of the group as a warning to the rest of the disciples. Madman said righteously. Needless to say. After hearing his words, even Feng Yuan felt that this was the right thing to do. The first elder was also stunned when he heard this. He nodded and said, It does sound reasonable. That's right. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. They rely on their strength to instigate others to make things difficult for Jiang Haotian and the others. Isn't this the same as rebelling? This kind of people must be punished. Otherwise, if everyone imitates them in the future, wouldn't our 9 Heavens Palace be in chaos? Madman said. That makes sense. The first elder nodded and turned to Feng Yuan with a smile. Feng Yuan, you heard it with your own ears. He did this out of good intentions for our 9 Heavens Palace. First elder, you, Feng Yuan looked at the first elder and Madman and couldn't find a reason to refute. First elder, these years, the disciples below and some of the management have become more and more presumptuous. In my opinion, it's necessary to intimidate them. Shengguan Fenglan cupped her hands and said. The first elder looked at Feng Yuan and asked, Feng Yuan, what do you think? Indeed, we should intimidate them. Feng Yuan nodded helplessly. It was obvious that the first elder was protecting Madman. If they continued to pursue this matter, it might backfire and arouse the first elder's dissatisfaction. Isn't this a perfect solution? The first elder chuckled and looked at Madman. You did a good job this time. You should be rewarded. What? Feng Yuan was dumbfounded. Not only did they not pursue the matter, but they also wanted to reward Madman? Isn't this a little too much? The first elder ignored Feng Yuan's dissatisfaction and asked with a smile, Feng Yuan, how do you think we should reward him? This, Shengguan Fenglan didn't know how to answer. Feng Yuan frowned and suddenly his eyes flashed. He bowed and said, First elder, how about this, let Madman enter the Divine Palace. Divine Palace? Madman was stunned and quickly waved his hand. No, I'm not interested in that damn place. Feng Yuan looked at Madman and said, Entering the Divine Palace is a supreme honor. You should be grateful. I don't need this honor. Madman said disdainfully. Feng Yuan's eyes flashed coldly as he turned to the first elder and said with a smile, First elder, what do you think of my suggestion? The first elder pondered for a moment and said, He is qualified to enter the Divine Palace, but we can't force him. How about this, didn't Jin Yunchang's position as inner elder was removed? Let Madman take over for a while. This, Feng Yuan's body stiffened and he quickly said with a smile, letting him temporarily take over the position of inner elder, isn't it a bit of a waste? The first elder looked at Madman and asked, "What do you think?" Inner elder, Madman scratched his head and said with a smile, "Can I continue to stay in the outer sect?" "No. My 9 heavens palace doesn't raise idle people." The first elder shook his head. "Okay. As long as you don't go to the divine palace, you can do anything." Madman was helpless. "Then it's decided. Fenglan, you go and send out the appointment letter later." The first elder said. "Yes." Shengguan Fenglan nodded. "Send out the appointment letter just like that? This is too childish." Feng Yuan was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly said, "First elder, what about Jin Yunchang? We can't really expel him from 9 heavens palace because of this little mistake." The first elder asked, "Jin Yunchang is your son-in-law?" Feng Yuan nodded. The first elder thought for a while and said with a smile, "Then I'll give you face and let him continue to stay in the deacon hall and assist Madman in managing the inner sect." Feng Yuan was stunned. Assist Madman? Wasn't that the same as letting Jin Yunchang be Madman's subordinate? Then would Jin Yunchang still have a good life in the inner sect deacon hall? Do you have any objections? The first elder looked at Feng Yuan and asked. No. Feng Yuan hurriedly shook his head. The first elder waved his hand and said with a smile, "All right then, go do your own things." Feng Yuan sighed helplessly. He felt like he was a clown jumping on a beam. Not only did he fail to find Qin Feiyang to wash away his shame, but he also ended up in a sorry state. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at the first elder. He said respectfully, "First elder, there is something I want to ask for your consent." "What is it?" The first elder was suspicious. Shengguan Fenglan and Madman also looked at him in confusion. Feng Yuan said, "This time, I want to increase the difficulty of the recruitment in the resource hall." "What do you mean?" The first elder was curious. Feng Yuan said, "In the past, the lowest requirement was perfect war god. This time, I want to raise it to perfect war god." "Why?" "Entering the resource hall to work doesn't seem to have a direct relationship with cultivation, right?" The first elder frowned. Feng Yuan said, "There is indeed no direct relationship, but there is no harm in raising the standard." The first elder thought for a moment and nodded with a smile, "This is actually not a big deal. I'll do as you say." "Thank you, first elder." After Feng Yuan finished speaking, he turned around and left quickly. Shengguan Fenglan glanced at Feng Yuan, and a glint flashed across her eyes. She said to Madman, "Madman, you go back first. He must be planning some shady business again." Madman looked at the first elder and Shengguan Fenglan with disdain, then turned around and swaggered away. This bastard brat is getting harder and harder to discipline. The first elder looked at Madman's back and sighed helplessly. Shengguan Fenglan said, "Actually, what I am most concerned about is, why did he help Jiang Haotian? What's the use of caring? Can he tell you?" The first elder shook his head. Shengguan Fenglan smiled bitterly and said, "First elder, why did you agree to Feng Yuan's request? His decision is obviously targeted at Jiang Haotian." "Of course I know. But during this period of time, Jiang Haotian has caused him to lose soldiers time and time again. If we don't listen to him, I'm afraid he will suspect that we are behind all of this." The first elder laughed. "Then wouldn't Jiang Haotian be unable to enter the resource hall?" Shengguan Fenglan frowned. The first elder said, "Did you notice his cultivation level?" "Cultivation level?" Shengguan Fenglan was stunned. The first elder said, "Yesterday, I received news that he appeared in the treasure hall and had broken through to the perfect war god realm." "Perfect war god?" Shengguan Fenglan was stunned. Thinking back carefully, it seemed that the aura emitted by this child was really that of a perfect war god. "I don't know, how did he do it?" "I don't know, is he hiding his cultivation level?" But I have a feeling that Feng Yuan raising the standard won't be a problem for him. Besides, even if he doesn't go to the resource hall now, it doesn't matter. Because now, his relationship with Feng Yuan has reached a point of no return. Even if he doesn't go to the resource hall, they will still fight to the death. The first elder laughed. That makes sense. Shengguan Fenglan nodded. Then, she pondered for a while and said, "There's one more thing." "What is it?" The first elder was suspicious. "Yesterday, my sister Shengguan Xiu sent me a message saying that Jiang Haotian and the vice pavilion master of the treasure hall seemed a little unusual." Shengguan Fenglan said. "The vice pavilion master of the treasure hall." The first elder's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. He said in a deep voice, "Unusual how?" "According to my sister. Originally, she was cooperating with Mu Tianyang. However, when Jiang Haotian met with the vice pavilion master immediately instructed my sister to terminate the cooperation with Mu Tianyang and work with Jiang Haotian instead." Shengguan Fenglan said. "What are they cooperating for?" the first elder asked. Chapter 2054. I wonder if you've heard of the 9-chew yellow dragon pill and the 9-turn dragon blood pill? Shengguan Fenglan asked. "I've heard of it." The first elder nodded. These two pills were refined by Mu Tianyang. And Jiang Haotian can also refine these two pills. Shengguan Fenglan said. "So that's how it is. I really didn't expect that my 9 Heavens Palace had such a powerful person hidden." The first elder whispered, his eyes flickering. Shengguan Fenglan frowned. "First elder, don't you think it's strange that we've never heard of these two pills before?" The first elder pondered for a while and said, "If there's a chance, talk to Jiang Haotian and Mu Tianyang." "Okay." Shengguan Fenglan nodded. "Right. I asked you to investigate their origins, did you find out?" the first elder asked. "No. These two people are like mysteries, there's no way to investigate." Shengguan Fenglan shook her head. "There's no way to investigate," the first elder murmured, frowning. "In the future, you must keep an eye on them for this old man, especially the relationship between Jiang Haotian and the deputy pavilion master." "Okay." Shengguan Fenglan nodded. The first elder smiled and waved his hand. "Then go do your work." Shengguan Fenglan bowed and saluted, then turned and left quickly. 9-chew yellow dragon pill, 9-turn dragon blood pill, these pill formulas, where did they find them, these two people, what kind of origin do they have? The first elder sat alone in the conference hall and pondered. Outside. In less than half an hour, the news of Madman temporarily acting as the inner court elder spread wildly in 9 Heavens Palace. It can't be. He killed someone in public, not only is he not punished, but he is also temporarily acting as the inner court elder? It's really unbelievable. What's the relationship between Madman and the first elder? In fact, for someone like Madman, temporarily acting as the inner court elder is also a kind of punishment in disguise. It makes sense. Madman is used to being lazy, suddenly letting him manage the inner court affairs, I'm afraid it's hard for him to accept. Wait. What are you all thinking? Are these the main points? Don't you know the temper of a lunatic? Letting him manage the inner sect is simply a disaster for us inner sect disciples. If you didn't mention it, I really wouldn't have thought of this. How are we going to live in the future? Compared to the shock of the outer disciples, the inner disciples were more worried. This was especially true for the disciples of the 10 sacred peaks. This time, the madman killed the golden-clothed man and the others in public, causing them to involuntarily have a shadow in their hearts. Brother, I'm back. Around noon. Fire Lotus ran into cave abode number 1 with a smile. Inside the cave. There was no one there. But before Fire Lotus could finish her words, Qin Feiyang appeared in the cave out of thin air. After leaving the Fire Lotus, he went to the castle with Qin Rushwang to cultivate. What happened? Why are you so happy? Looking at Fire Lotus's excited expression, Qin Feiyang was a bit stunned. Could it be that this girl had really met someone she liked in the Nine Heavens Palace? Did you know? The madman is actually fine. Fire Lotus said. Fine? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Originally, I thought that he would definitely be severely punished this time, but guess what? He actually became an elder of our inner sect. Fire Lotus said. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The appointment letter has already been issued. And Shengguan Fenglan also announced to the public that the madman killed people in public because those people gathered to cause trouble. In other words, not only did he not violate the rules, but he also did a good thing. Fire Lotus smiled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. This madman really had some tricks up his sleeve. Then where is he now? Qin Feiyang asked. Of course, he took office and went to the duty hall. Fire Lotus said. What about Jin Yinchang? Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus said, the great elder didn't chase him out of Jiutian Palace, but let him assist the madman in managing the inner sect affairs. Assist the madman? Isn't that the same as becoming the madman's subordinate? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. The madman is now his immediate superior. With the madman's personality, he will definitely have a hard time in the future. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but sympathize with Jin Yinchang. Having such a boss was simply torture and torment. Also, there's another news. This news might be a bit unfavorable for you. Fire Lotus said again. What news? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The resource hall just posted an announcement, saying that only disciples above Perfection War God can participate in this registration. Fire Lotus said. Above Perfection War God? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This is really bad news. It's strange. I heard from other disciples that the resource hall's minimum requirement was Perfection War God, but why did it suddenly become Perfection War God? Fire Lotus was puzzled. The previous requirement was Perfection War God? Qin Feiyang frowned. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered for a while, then shook his head and sighed. It seems like this is coming for me. Coming for you? It shouldn't be. Feng Yuan didn't know you would be registering? Fire Lotus said. He must be just in case. It's better to be prepared. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. This matter was really difficult to deal with. Although he had enough soul stones now, he still needed time to refine them. After breaking through to Perfection War God, his speed of refining soul stones had also increased. Now, he could refine around 100 soul stones in 2 hours. But even so, the time was far from enough. Because Perfection War God needed to refine 10 million soul stones to break through to Perfection War God. 10 million soul stones wasn't a small number. After careful calculation, it would take at least 270 years. Even in the ancient castle, it would take 270 days. But now, there were only 2 days left before the registration. How could he break through to Perfection War God in 2 days? Buzz. Suddenly, the image crystal rang. Qin Feiyang exhaled and took out the image crystal. A shadow appeared. It was Mu Tianyang. Without wasting any time, Mu Tianyang directly asked, "Do you know about the announcement posted by the resource hall?" "I just heard about it," Qin Feiyang said. "Then do you have any ideas?" Mu Tianyang asked. Because he hadn't broken through to Perfection War God yet. Qin Feiyang said, "I'm thinking about it." Mu Tianyang said, "I have an idea, but I need you to do it." Qin Feiyang was stunned and quickly asked, "What idea? Are you stupid?" "Of course it's the 4 symbols infinite divine pill." Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes at him. "That's right. With the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, what am I afraid of? Qin Feiyang slapped his head in annoyance, and then a smile appeared on his face. I don't have the ability to get the 4 symbols infinite divine pill's medicinal ingredients. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to refine it now, so you have to do it. Mu Tianyang said. You can't refine it? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. Currently, I don't have a divine level pill fire or a pill furnace. Mu Tianyang said. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and nodded. All right, I'll think of a way. After saying that, he turned off the image crystal. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, what idea do you have? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, right now, I can only ask the Treasure Pavilion's Vice Pavilion Master for help. After saying that, he activated the image crystal and contacted the Vice Pavilion Master. As the largest trading place in the ancient world, the Treasure Pavilion should have the 4 divine beasts' blood essence and the infinite divine fruit. Even if they didn't, they would definitely be able to find them in a short period of time. Chapter 2055. Under Qin Feiyang's anticipation, the Vice Pavilion Master's shadow finally appeared. So it's you. When he saw that it was Qin Feiyang, a smile crept onto the Vice Pavilion Master's old face. Greetings, Senior. Qin Feiyang bowed. Huo Lian, who was beside him, also bowed. Looking at Fire Lotus, the Vice Pavilion Master's pupils constricted slightly, but he quickly returned to normal. He looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled hoarsely. Is there anything you need from me? There is indeed something that I need your help with. Qin Feiyang nodded. The Vice Pavilion Master smiled. If I can help you, I will definitely not refuse. Thank you, Senior. I need the blood essence of the 4 divine beasts and the Wuxia divine fruit. Qin Feiyang said. The blood essence of the 4 divine beasts? Wuxia divine fruit? The Vice Pavilion Master was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, which 4 divine beasts are you talking about? Qin Feiyang said, Vermilion bird, black tortoise, azure dragon, and white tiger. So it's them. The Vice Pavilion Master nodded. May I know if the Treasure Pavilion has these blood essences now? Don't worry, I won't take them for free. I'll buy them all at the auction price. Qin Feiyang said. The price is not a problem. But I'll have to ask little Chiu about it first. After all, I haven't asked about the Treasure Pavilion for a long time. I don't know if they have it or not. The Vice Pavilion Master said. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed and hurriedly cupped his hands. Then I'll leave it to you, Senior. It's fine. The Vice Pavilion Master waved his hand and smiled. How many do you need? The more, the better. Qin Feiyang said without hesitation. Because in addition to him, there was also the Mermaid Princess and the others. It would be best if everyone had a share. After all, a 4 symbols infinite divine pill could save everyone a lot of time. All right then. I'll call little Chiu over. Wait for my news. After the Deputy Pavilion Master finished speaking, the shadow quickly dissipated. Qin Feiyang also put away the image crystal and turned to look at Fire Lotus. He frowned and said, Don't you think that this Deputy Pavilion Master is too easy to talk to? He didn't even consider it. It must be because you're popular. Fire Lotus smiled. I'm popular? Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment before he bitterly smiled. If I had good relations with people, I wouldn't have trouble following me wherever I go. Fire Lotus covered her smile and walked into the living room. There was a coffee table and chairs in the living room. Fire Lotus sat beside the tea table, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Would you like some tea? Qin Feiyang slapped his head and said, If you didn't mention tea, I would have forgotten about the tea leaves that the Vice Pavilion Master gave me. As he spoke, he also entered the guest hall and took out the jade box containing the tea leaves. Fire Lotus also took out the beauties of Qinghai from her interspatial ring. When she left the treasure house yesterday, she directly stored the beauties of Qin Hai in her own interspatial ring. She didn't give it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang opened the jade box and sniffed it. He showed an intoxicated expression and then said, "Little Chiu, you've been a bit strange recently." Strange? Hearing this, Fire Lotus's body stiffened immediately, but she soon calmed down and asked suspiciously, "What's strange? You run out from time to time without telling us what you're going to do. Tell me honestly, did you really meet someone you like?" Qin Feiyang looked up at Fire Lotus and said, "Someone I like?" Fire Lotus was stunned. Her cheeks under the mask couldn't help but blush. Then she rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyang and said helplessly, "What are you thinking? There's nothing like that." "Then why did you run out?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Just strolling around to see if I can find some place to recover my lost memories," Fire Lotus said. "So that's how it is." Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "I thought you met someone you like in the Empyrean Palace and were too embarrassed to tell us." Fire Lotus smiled helplessly. "I'm not joking. If you really meet someone you like in the future, you have to tell me. I'll help you check," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded and said with a pout, "Why do I feel like you can't wait to marry me off now? She's a girl. Sooner or later, she will get married," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Fire Lotus was speechless. "Trash of the 10 St. Peaks, come out for lousy." Suddenly, an arrogant shout sounded in the sky outside. Fire Lotus paused and said in surprise, "That's Madman's voice. What does he want to do? Let's go and see," Qin Feiyang said with a smile, then got up and walked outside. Fire Lotus also hurriedly put down the teapot and ran out. When the two of them walked out of the cave, the disciples of the other caves had already come out. They stood at the entrance of their caves and looked at the sky, their eyes filled with fear. The madman was standing in the void above with an old and proud look on his face. Jin Yunchang was also there. But compared to before, he was much more obedient now, like a little follower, respectfully standing behind Madman. Madman put his hands behind his back and looked at the disciples of the St. Peak arrogantly. "You all know about the appointment letter above, right?" Everyone nodded. "From today onwards, Laozi is an inner sect elder. In other words, from this moment onwards, your little lives are in Laozi's hands. Now, all of you listen to Laozi and remember every word Laozi is about to say. Laozi is not like that trash Jin Yunchang. If you dare to be as presumptuous as before, then don't blame Laozi for being ruthless. Understand?" Madman shouted. Understood. Everyone hurriedly nodded. Who could afford to offend this fierce person? Very good. Madman nodded and shouted, "Trash, lead the way." Jin Yunchang was stunned. "I'm talking to you, didn't you hear me?" Madman turned his head and glanced at Jin Yunchang. Jin Yunchang was unable to voice out his bitterness. If he knew it would be like this, he would have just left Nine Heaven Palace. He asked with a bitter face, "Where are we going?" "Nonsense. We were going to the Red Gold Divine Tower and Purple Gold Divine Tower. These Earth-ranking and Heaven-ranking disciples are also people who need to be taught a lesson." Madman sneered. Good. Jin Yunchang nodded and hurriedly ran to the front to lead the way. After Madman swaggered away, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and smiled bitterly. "A new broom sweeps clean, this saying is indeed true." As for the other disciples, they sighed endlessly. Their days in the future would be difficult. Fire Lotus said, "Actually, I feel that First Elder making Madman an inner sect elder is a very correct decision." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang said. "Think about it. These inner sect disciples, especially the 10 St. Peaks, as well as the disciples on the Heaven ranking and Earth ranking, which one of them isn't a shocking monstrous figure? Without a bit of courage and means, it's impossible to control them." Fire Lotus laughed. That's reasonable. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, but are the disciples on the earth ranking and heaven ranking also under the control of the inner sect? Fire Lotus said, I've inquired before, they are indeed under the control of the inner sect. Then there will be a good show to watch. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Madman's back. This guy ran to the red gold divine tower and purple gold divine tower, there would definitely be a good show. Wang. But suddenly, the image crystal that he had placed in his bosom rang. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He originally wanted to watch the show, but he didn't expect someone to send a message. And it was very likely to be the Vice Pavilion Master. He shook his head with some regret and quickly entered the cave residence. But Fire Lotus stayed outside, looking at Madman and the two divine towers with interest. Chapter 2056. Qin Feiyang, who had returned to his cave residence, took out the image crystal. Buzz! An old man appeared. Who else could it be but the Deputy Pavilion Master? Qin Feiyang asked, Senior, how is it? I've asked Miss Chiu. There are Wuxia Immortal Fruit, Azure Dragon, Black Tortoise, and Vermilion Bird, but there is no White Tiger. The Deputy Pavilion Master said apologetically. Qin Feiyang was a little disappointed when he heard this. He asked, how much Wuxia Immortal Fruit and Azure Dragon are there? Young friend, please forgive me. I can't reveal the exact number. This is the rule of the Treasure Pavilion. I can only say that I can give you 30 Wuxia Immortal Fruits. I can give you 20 drops of Azure Dragon and the other 2 Divine Beasts' blood. The Deputy Pavilion Master smiled. So much? Qin Feiyang was surprised and asked, is it a total of 20 drops, or 20 drops each? The Deputy Pavilion Master said, of course it's 20 drops each. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless. 20 drops as soon as he opened his mouth. This treasure pavilion was indeed rich. The Deputy Pavilion Master said, although my treasure pavilion doesn't have White Tiger's blood, I do have a way, but I don't know if you dare. Go ahead. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. The Deputy Pavilion Master smiled meaningfully. Feng Yuan has a divine beast White Tiger by his side. Feng Yuan? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He didn't expect that this old thing had actually subdued a divine beast White Tiger. However, if it were someone else, he would be confident. But this Feng Yuan, how could he be willing to give him the White Tiger's blood? Not to mention giving it to him, even if he spent a lot of money to buy it, he would definitely not sell it to him. The Deputy Pavilion Master said, may I ask, what do you want to do with the 4 divine beasts' blood and Wuxia Immortal Fruit? It's nothing. I just want to do research. Qin Feiyang smiled. Research? The Deputy Pavilion Master was surprised. This answer was really unexpected. Wait. The everlasting divine fruit was a medicinal ingredient. Could it be that this child wanted to research some kind of medicinal pill? Little friend, do you still want the everlasting divine fruit and the blood essence of the Azure Dragon and the other 2 divine beasts? The Vice Pavilion Master asked. Yes. Of course. Qin Feiyang hurriedly nodded and said, however, this junior only needs 20 infinite divine fruits. Can you calculate how many divine crystals it would cost? This price, the Vice Pavilion Master pondered for a moment and smiled. Why don't you talk to Little Chiu directly? After all, I've been in seclusion for too long, and I don't know the current market situation. That works too. Qin Feiyang nodded. The Vice Pavilion Master laughed hoarsely, then this old man will let her go and prepare. Thank you, Senior. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. It's nothing. The Deputy Pavilion Master waved his hand, and the shadow quickly dissipated. Feng Yuan, Qin Feiyang also put away the image crystal and sat on a chair, his face full of worry. It was probably harder than ascending to the heavens to get the White Tiger's essence blood from Feng Yuan. Might as well discuss with Mu Tianyang. Perhaps he will have a way, Qin Feiyang mumbled and took out the image crystal again. Buzz. Before long, Mu Tianyang's shadow appeared. Qin Feiyang said, I've asked the people of the treasure pavilion. They have the infinite divine fruit, azure dragon, black tortoise, and vermilion bird essence blood, but they lack the white tiger essence blood. Even the treasure pavilion doesn't have the white tiger essence blood? Mu Tianyang raised his brows. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Who are you asking about? Is he reliable? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, I don't know much about this person, but I think he should be reliable. Should be? Should be? Mu Tianyang was speechless. Qin Feiyang said, however, although the treasure pavilion doesn't have it, I've found a way. What way? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, Feng Yuan has a white tiger with him. Ah. Mu Tianyang was stunned. There were so many people in the Empyrean Palace. Why did it have to be this old thing? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, I can't think of a way at the moment, so I'm looking for you to discuss. Do you have any bad ideas? Bad ideas? Don't look down on me. Mu Tianyang said angrily. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, if I look down on you, why would I look for you? Mu Tianyang said, then I don't like what you said. Okay. I apologize. I was wrong just now. I didn't choose my words carefully. Is that okay? Qin Feiyang was speechless. What a calculative person. Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes at him and said, this Feng Yuan, we definitely can't do anything. We can only let the Great Elder and Shengguan Fenglan come forward. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly, do you think the two of them will help? If they don't help, then we won't go to the resource hall. Let's see what they can do. Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. Don't say angry words. If we don't go to the resource hall, how can we get the vein of soul? Qin Feiyang said. Headache. Mu Tianyang rubbed his forehead. Suddenly, his eyes flashed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, why don't we kidnap Feng Zijuan? Kidnap Feng Zijuan? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Look, Feng Wenhai only has 2 sons. One is Gongzi Feng, the other is Feng Zijuan. But this Gongzi Feng, because of his birth, is not liked by the Feng family. Kidnapping him will not make much sense. But this Feng Zijuan is different. Whether it is Feng Yuan or Feng Wenhai, they both love him very much. If we kidnap him and threaten him, I think Feng Yuan, this old thing, will definitely obediently hand over the essence blood. Mu Tianyang laughed. It is indeed a bad idea. Qin Feiyang whispered, then frowned and asked suspiciously, how do you know that Gongzi Feng is not liked? Who do you think I am? Can you hide it from my eyes? I have investigated him long ago. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said, then you also know the relationship between Gongzi Feng and me? Not much, I know a little. Mu Tianyang laughed. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips and said, looking at your face, I want to beat you up. I am your partner now. It is your loss to beat me up. Mu Tianyang looked at him proudly. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes, pondered for a moment, and nodded. Okay, we will kidnap Feng Zijuan. Wait. Don't talk about us. It is you who will kidnap him. I don't want to interfere in this matter. Mu Tianyang waved his hand. You want the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, but you don't want to kidnap Feng Zijuan. How can there be such a good thing in the world? Qin Feiyang sneered. Don't worry. I just said that I don't want to interfere. I didn't say that I will not interfere. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Mu Tianyang and said, from what you said, you want to take the opportunity to blackmail me? Don't forget, we are now grasshoppers on the same rope, tied together in life and death. Of course I didn't forget. But kidnapping Feng Zijuan is not a small matter. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Qin Feiyang said impatiently, don't beat around the bush. Just say what you want to say. Mu Tianyang stretched out 3 fingers and said, I want 3 4 symbols infinite divine pills. So many? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Is it a lot? Mu Tianyang asked. Qin Feiyang said angrily, nonsense, I only planned for the 2 of us. Now you want 3. Where can I find them? Even my cooperation with Shengguan Xiu was cut off by you. How can such a small matter be difficult for you? Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Qin Feiyang frowned. Mu Tianyang said helplessly, 3 is really not a lot. Don't be so stingy, okay? I am stingy? Qin Feiyang suddenly became angry. He suddenly raised his eyebrows and said, why do you want 3? Isn't it just you and Mu Qing now? Mu Tianyang said jokingly, have you forgotten your fiancé so quickly? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. He said in a low voice, you should know my ancestor's character. He would never make such a ridiculous marriage agreement. Of course I know. But Guosweki doesn't know. Until now, she still thinks that the marriage agreement is real. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. What's the point of doing this? You know my strength. With Guosweki's little tricks, she will never be able to threaten me. Qin Feiyang frowned. Not necessarily. Mu Tianyang smiled. Qin Feiyang was very angry. He said, fine, I promise to give you 3 4 symbols infinite divine pills, but you have to promise me one thing. Say it. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, when you get the white tiger blood essence, it will all belong to me. What do you want? Mu Tianyang was surprised. Don't worry about that. Qin Feiyang said. This, Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and nodded helplessly, right now, only you can refine the 4 symbols infinite divine pills. I can't do anything without you. Deal, when do you want to act? There's no time to lose. Now. Do you know Feng Zijuan's cave residence? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. He is the inner sex number 1 Sword Peak's number 10 cave residence. Mu Tianyang said. With his strength, he can enter the number 1 Sword Peak? Qin Feiyang was surprised. If you can enter the first sacred peak, what's so strange about him entering the number 1 Sword Peak? Mu Tianyang pouted. You're jealous. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, now that Frenzine Jin Yunchang have gone to the red gold divine tower and the purple gold divine tower, let's hurry and meet in the inner sex Deacon Hall and kidnap Feng Zijuan before they come back. Okay. Mu Tianyang nodded. The 2 turned off the image crystal at the same time and left their respective cave residences. Qin Feiyang flew to Fire Lotus's side, looked up at the 2 divine towers, and asked, what's the situation? Frenzy went directly into the red gold divine tower. I wonder what's the situation inside. Fire Lotus shook her head. Qin Feiyang said, then don't look. Let's go and do something important. What is it? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Qin Feiyang leaned over to Fire Lotus's ear and whispered, kidnap Feng Zijuan. What? Fire Lotus exclaimed. Shoo! Qin Feiyang hurriedly made a shushing gesture. Fire Lotus nodded, looked around vigilantly, and said, why do you want to kidnap him? Of course there's a reason. You'll know later. A mysterious smile appeared on Qin Feiyang's face. Bringing the Fire Lotus with him, he returned to his cultivation dwelling, closed the door, and entered the Black Tortoise world. Controlling the Black Tortoise world, he left the cultivation dwelling without anyone noticing, flying toward the inner court Deacon Hall. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.